Welcome to British Crime Shows number 9. First up we have the case of the Dandelion Killer, which was dramatised by Michael Butt. The dramatic murder trial of solicitor Herbert Armstrong, accused of murdering his wife by poisoning her.
John Mortimer presents Sensational British Trials, a series of special investigations of true crimes and trials which scandalised the nation. Today's story: the case of the Dandelion Killer. Introduced by John Mortimer.
During his years as clerk of Hereford Assizes, Mr. Greenacre has witnessed most forms of human passion which has sometimes resulted in murder. He has noticed that, like Christmas, murder usually occurs in the family circle. No wonder that when Mr. Greenacre hears the words domestic bliss, he tends to cross his fingers and cast a quick glance heavenwards. But the murder trial that begins in court number 3 today has a special significance for him. To begin with, the prisoner, Herbert Armstrong, is a fellow solicitor and long-time acquaintance. But what is more disturbing, Mr. Greenacre has had to face the alarming fact that it was only by the greatest of good fortune that he had avoided becoming one of his victims.
Miss Pierce, for how long were you employed as housekeeper in the Armstrong household?
10 years.
Do you recognize the signature on this will, Miss Pierce?
It's mine.
Do you remember signing it?
Yes.
It was then usual for the Attorney General to appear for the prosecution in poison cases, which were regarded with special horror. Sir Edward Pollock is examining the Armstrong family maid.
Now, Miss Pierce, here is a second will dated July 1920 and drawn up in the prisoner's handwriting. Was Mrs. Armstrong present when you signed it, Miss Pierce?
No.
Did you know that the will was not valid unless signed in the presence of Mrs. Armstrong herself?
No.
Did you know what the second will states?
No.
It bequeaths the entire contents of Mrs. Armstrong's estate to her husband. Oh. Can I now ask you about the last days of Mrs. Armstrong's life?
From his seat in the well of the court, Mr. Greenacre glances upwards at the prisoner. Herbert Armstrong looks small and dapper in the dock, almost delicate. Greenacre is struck by the colour of his eyes. They're a shade of blue he would like to put a name to.
Did you know that Mrs. Armstrong was dying?
Yes. Dr. Hink told me on the morning of the day she died that she would probably not survive.
What did Mr. Armstrong do that day?
He went to his office.
He had been informed that his wife was going to die. He ate his breakfast and went to his office as usual.
Yes.
No further questions.
Now that the trial is underway, Mr. Greenacre has the opportunity to review the significant events that led up to it. In particular, he remembers his last meetings with his old colleague, and as he does so, begins to feel the pangs of uncomfortable indigestion.
Are they back, Mr. Greenacre?
They were delayed, Mr. Armstrong.
Are they back?
No. 3 hours.
Open and shut, his nib says. My arse.
Language, Mr. Armstrong.
You see, he handled it wrong.
We are only clerks.
Excuse me, you are the clerk, Mr. Greenacre. I, a mere assistant.
Point being, they are the lawyers.
3 hours is not my idea of open and shut.
There were some tricky legal points in this one, I fancy.
Oh, yes, Mr. Greenacre, and what would they be? Do brush me up on the tricky legal points.
I'm not saying you don't know the law, Mr. Armstrong.
Oh, good.
I know you're waiting to fill my shoes.
Not at all.
Oh, yes. To be clerk of Hereford Assizes, your ambition. And when, Mr. Armstrong?
When?
When will that happy day come? When they carry me out in a box. Not before.
Well, let us hope that will not be for a long time. Mr. Greenacre?
Ambitious and arrogant, perhaps, but is Armstrong capable of cold-blooded murder? The defence advocate, Sir Henry Curtis Bennett, thinks there is another explanation.
Miss Pierce, did you ever hear Mrs. Armstrong threaten to kill herself?
Well, yes.
What exactly did you hear?
When she was ill, she began to develop fears. She said she'd done something very wicked. I tried to deny it, but she insisted. She said that she knew men were coming into the house to take her away. That she'd done something wrong and must be punished.
She had delusions.
Yes. She said, I would like to be out of it. I would like to be finished with it.
Did her husband know this?
He took it very seriously. He hid his razor and a pistol he had.
He feared she was going to harm herself.
Yes.
And he took precautions to stop it.
Yes.
No further questions?
Mr. Greenacre is, like the jury, forced to rely on his own imagination. The details of those last conversations between husband and wife remain the subject of speculation, though, naturally enough, he believes that he himself was on the agenda.
You know what Greenacre says to me?
Don't bolt your food, Herbert. I can see your bolus.
And what I'm saying,
We
Catherine...
can hear what you're saying, Herbert, all the way to Cardiff.
I feel very strongly about this. An old dog like Greenacre hangs on to the clerk's job way past the time when any reasonable man would have given it up. He was laughing at me.
Of course he was. Not for the first time you were displaying your feelings uninvited. He took great pleasure in squashing them. Of course he did. It was only natural.
No. What I mean...
Herbert, are you going to waste your dumplings?
No.
Mary's proud of her dumplings. If they go back, there'll be black moods for a week, and you'll be to blame, mister.
You all right?
No.
You look seedy. You've gone liverish.
I feel... Oh, God! It's those dumplings!
Oh, dear.
Tennis has long provided the English middle classes with an acceptable focus for their more aggressive instincts. From the safety of the baseline, murders may be contemplated. And it's only centuries of conditioning that prevents matches ending not with a handshake, but rather with one or other of the opponents having a racket buried in his skull.
Good shot.
Thank you.
Oh, I wish I could do shots like that.
I just hit it.
No, you're deadly.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Well done.
Are we playing on?
Listen, Oswald. May I call you Oswald?
If you like.
Well, how would you like to come to tea with me next week? Huh? Tuesday.
Well,
Well, we could talk of the business over a scone or two. Listen, 2 firms of solicitors, yours and mine, in a tiny place like Wye. Does it make sense? I don't think so. Intelligent chaps like ourselves, might be getting round to thinking about a merger. Now, listen.
I don't think so, Mr. Armstrong.
Oh, call me Herbert.
I don't think so, Herbert.
You don't think so what?
The merger.
All right, forget the merger. Come to tea anyway.
Oh, all right. Wife not here?
Ah, she's, not feeling too good just lately, as a matter of fact.
Oh, dear.
So I had to leave her at home.
That's her, isn't it?
You better, dear.
Never mind about that. It's your bath night.
Ah.
And I want you home. Now.
Right.
Here, I'll take your racket.
The strident commands of a wife who must be obeyed echo across the green and pleasant courts. Heads are turned, smiles exchanged. Who could blame Herbert Armstrong if he was to seek comfort elsewhere?
Mr. Armstrong.
Ah. Betty, is it?
Thought I saw you.
Weren't you at the tennis?
That's it. You saw me.
Did I?
I think you did. You were looking.
Perhaps I was.
Oh, I think you was.
I'm busy.
Are you? I don't think you are.
Well,
What you doing?
I'm trying to get rid of the dandelions.
With a needle?
Arsenic. I push it down hard into the roots.
Oh. Your wife out then?
She's just popped to the doctor's.
Ah.
What do you want?
My friend reckons you're on the lookout for something.
Something?
You know.
You're very forward.
Nothing wrong with that, is there? So, I'll be going, shall I?
You want to come in?
What?
Cup of tea, currant bun. No harm there.
I'll just lean my bike against the fence, shall I?
You lean it where you like, my dear.
All right, I will.
In his office, the solicitor, Oswald Martin, dictates a letter and imagines an unstoppable
For
Sir.
those reasons, I feel I will not be able to consider...
Right. Amalgamating our two firms in the foreseeable future. I'm sure this is best for both our firms. Yours sincerely. Now then, what's this?
A package. I didn't open it.
Box of chocolates. No note, nothing.
You must have a secret admirer.
Do you think so?
Give me the nougat and Mrs. Martin will never know of it.
Have the lot. Chocolates are not a weakness I indulge.
Really? Oh, I couldn't tell you how much I admire you for that sentiment.
They're burning.
It's all right.
It's not all right. The sheets are burning.
Jenny!
Oh, is it, sir?
Get the doctor, quickly.
Oh.
I think this is the best thing for her.
Yes,
I understand the word asylum conjures up images of poor creatures frothing at the mouth, but in Mrs. Armstrong's case, we're not talking about psychosis.
No, of course not. It's just that...
They'll look after her at Barnwood.
Yes. How long will she be in?
No, weeks rather than days.
I see. I didn't want her to stay in there long, you see.
No, of course not. After the physical symptoms, the stomach pains she was having, the vomiting, they sort that out too. See, I wouldn't do this if I wasn't happy with it. Chin up.
And in the following week, Dr. Hink attends other victims of remarkably similar gastric emergencies.
Hello, Oswald Martin, solicitor. Oh, hello. Herbert. Yes. No, I don't usually, but Travers has rung in sick. I don't know, some stomach upset. Yes, I think he has got the doctor in. I would think so. That's right. Tea. Well, that's next Tuesday. Let me have a look in my diary. Well, that looks... Right. 3 o'clock. Yes. Yes, I know where it is. Goodbye, Mr. Armstrong. Sorry. Herbert.
Another slice of currant bread, Oswald.
Oh,
Go on, spoil yourself.
Thank you, Mr. Armstrong.
Call me Herbert.
I suppose you want to talk about the merger. Is that what you...
No, not at all.
Did you get my letter?
Yes, fine. Another cup of tea.
Thank you. No, I hope you understand. I didn't object to the idea on practical grounds. It makes business sense. I couldn't argue with that. I just felt it was bad practice to have one firm of solicitors in Wye. It would be a monopoly. We wouldn't be offering the community any choice.
Yes, I'm sure you're right. Assuming that your recalcitrant Welshman wants choice.
How do you mean?
I mean, these are country people. They tend to resent choice, confuses them. Haven't you noticed?
Well, all the same...
And true, there are a finite number of Welshmen at any one time requiring legal services.
I know that.
Yes. Another scone?
I don't think...
Try the one with the jam. My wife made it.
How is she?
Still in the hospital. Improving, the doctors say. What do they know? If I did my job as badly as they do theirs, If I said to a client, yes, I'll take care of your money, but of course I may lose it, and if I do, I won't be responsible for it. Can you imagine? That's what they do.
You're worried, of course.
I'm bringing her home. You're better off at home, aren't you? Tempt you to another cup, Oswald?
Mr. Greenacre gazes at his old colleague. He's confronted with the mystery of another's intentions, and then remembers the invitation to dine.
How's it going, Mr. Greenacre?
Oh, very well, Mr. Armstrong.
Good.
Got a job for you. Court 5 this afternoon. I can't manage it. Are you free?
Of course I am. What is it?
Grievous bodily harm. quite a nice one.
Well, I'll be delighted to do it for you.
Very grateful.
Things piling up for you, I know. You should think about slowing down.
No, it isn't that.
Oh, put anything my way you like. You'll find I'm broad-shouldered. He just had an idea. How would you like to come out and have luncheon chez moi?
What?
Oh, nothing pretentious. A hot pot and 2 veg. What do you say?
Well, it's an idea.
No, it isn't. It's an invitation. What are you doing today?
Yeah, no, not today.
Oh?
That's what I'm saying. It's why I need you to do Court 5 for me. Judge Lane is retiring.
Is he?
He's given a luncheon party for some of us.
Oh.
And since you weren't invited...
No.
How long have you been like this?
I'm sorry.
Oh, that's all right.
I started to be sick this morning, quite early. I had terrible pains. That was the first thing.
Whereabouts?
Here. Felt like I was being crushed inside. What do you think it is?
Some sort of gastric germ, I think.
My clock's been off for a week.
It's the devil, isn't it? Something going round. I'll take some samples from you. We'll see what we're up against. Doctors like to give names to things. Makes them feel better.
What do I do?
Sit here. Rest. Look out the window, you know.
Thank you, Doctor. I'm so pleased to have you home. You look so much better.
Do I?
Yes. Do you feel better?
Yes, possibly. I feel a little weak still.
Of course. We'll soon build you up.
The food was appalling.
Oh, poor you.
Where would I be without you?
Mrs. Armstrong.
I mean it. You are my tower of strength.
It's lunchtime. I've made some lovely soup for you.
Forasmuch as it has pleased Almighty God of his great mercy to receive unto himself the soul of our dear sister, Catherine Mary Armstrong, here departed, we therefore commit her body to the ground. Earth to earth.
Mr. Greenacre.
Ashes to ashes.
Thanks for coming.
Dust
I'm
to dust.
very, very sorry, Mr. Armstrong.
Call me Herbert.
Yes. Very, very sad.
Yes.
To our Lord Jesus Christ.
I'm having a dinner party next week.
What?
Just a few friends. Oswald Martin, Talbot. Do you know Talbot?
I
thought it might help me get over it, you know. Hot pot, 2 veg, nice claret. What do you say? Well, a man needs friends when faced with such a terrible loss, don't you think? I mean, I don't know. It never rains, but it pours.
Why? What do you mean?
On top of this, do you know what else has happened?
What?
They've changed the fishing rights on the river. Not a word. Not a word.
Amen.
Well, can you come?
Have the keys of hell and death.
Toast, gentlemen.
Toast. Wonderful meal, Armstrong. You know what really touches me is that you have invited me, a tax inspector, to dine with you. I mean, that doesn't happen often. Not since Jesus of Nazareth sat down with what's his name, surely.
Have a chocolate.
Oh, thank you.
Greenacre?
Oh, no, not for me.
Oh, sure?
Oh, I couldn't.
Glad you could come.
I believe in paying my respects.
Yes.
Oswald Martin not free.
No, he hasn't been well.
Oh?
There's something going round. Chocolate?
Delicious.
No, I won't, no.
May I make a pig of myself?
Why not? They're tax-free.
I say.
Back at work then, Mr. Martin?
Oh, yes. Thank you, Dr. Hink.
And feeling all right, are you?
Oh, yes. Much better.
You see, your clerk is also...
Yes. Why?
Do you know Talbot?
The tax inspector?
Yes.
What?
A man goes to dinner with another man, and the next day he develops symptoms which are mistaken for, which seems to be appendicitis. He's operated on and he dies, which it is assumed is from peritonitis. Assumed because of the initial diagnosis. Now, another man, completely different, has already gone to tea with that man also.
Oh, which man?
The first man. Another man has already gone to tea with him. And the next day, he develops symptoms which are diagnosed as gastric influenza. Now, this man, the first man again, his wife has recently died, suddenly, unexpectedly. Death certificate signed by a local doctor says heart failure. But this doctor has a thought he wishes to God he could get rid of. You see?
You need a sample.
We took a sample. I mean, he took a sample. He's waiting to hear the results, which he hopes will be nothing. You see, it would involve him in all sorts of...
I understand.
Do you?
Has he spoken to anyone?
No, at least...
No, he hasn't.
Thank you. God, what if I'm right?
Listen, my clerk has never...
No.
He's never had any...
What?
The day before he was ill, we got this package. Didn't know who from. It had a box of chocolates in it.
He ate some?
Yeah. Yes? Yeah. Yes, all right. It's for you. It's the pathology lab at the hospital.
Hello? Dr. Hink? Yes, that's right. Yes, please. No. Right. Goodbye.
Well?
There goes my hope for a quiet life. That was the result of your tests. You had arsenic inside you.
Hello? Well, I'm... Yes, fine. Well, could I ring you back? Yes. That was Armstrong. He wants me to come to tea.
It's a very serious charge.
Exhume the body.
Can I explain something, Doctor?
Exhume his wife's body.
What have we got?
Reason enough, I should have thought.
Yes, but you're a doctor.
What does that mean?
Have you ever seen a policeman blush?
3 people who have eaten food or drink prepared by Armstrong.
2. We don't know where those chocolates came from.
One of them has a quantity of arsenic in his intestines. Now, Armstrong's wife recently died.
You thought it was heart failure?
If I look back at that woman's symptoms, believe me, there is more than enough to tie it to arsenic poisoning. Examine the body.
Dr. Hink, I've had another invitation from Armstrong. What the hell am I going to do?
Put him off.
What can I do? I can't keep putting him off. He rings me every day.
Put him off.
He wants to kill me. What are the police doing?
We're making our investigation, sir.
2 weeks.
It all takes time.
My God, why can't you just dig her up?
If there is one thing more solemn than a funeral, it's an exhumation. On such occasions, it's not necessary for the sky to be dark and the rain to be falling as the men haul up the ropes until the wet coffin bumps onto the clay slopes like a strange and awful fish. It's not necessary, but it seems appropriate.
Mr. Herbert Armstrong?
That's me.
My name is Detective Inspector Smiley, Hereford Constabulary. I have reason to believe that you were involved with the recent death of your wife. I'm arresting you on suspicion of murder. Do you wish to say anything in answer to the charge? You're not obliged to say anything unless you wish to do so. But whatever you do say will be taken down in writing and may be given in evidence. Well, sir?
I am perfectly innocent.
In this case, the prosecution had to prove, beyond a reasonable doubt, that Armstrong administered a particular poison to the victim on certain occasions and in a certain place. Opportunity was the battleground between prosecution and defense. In this struggle, the evidence of medical experts was vital. In the witness box is Dr. Spilsbury, the great pathologist from St. Bartholomew's Hospital. He peers over the rims of his spectacles like a small marine animal staring out from its underwater lair.
You were present, were you not, at the exhumation of Mrs. Armstrong's body?
Yes, I was.
What did the post-mortem reveal?
She had been buried 10 months, but was unusually well preserved, both externally and with regard to the organs.
How do you explain this?
It is fully explained by the amount of arsenic which was found. There were marked indications of fatty disease of the liver and kidneys, but there was no natural disease which could account for it.
What would you attribute the deterioration of those organs to in that case?
To the action of arsenic in poisonous doses.
How long would such amounts of arsenic have been in the body?
The transit of arsenic through the body varies, but tends to be more rapid than the transit of food, about 24 hours.
The defense advocate, Curtis Bennett, is on his feet.
Professor Spilsbury, you have just told the court that as a matter of fact, Mrs. Armstrong took a fatal dose of arsenic within 1 day of her death. You stated it as a matter of fact.
Well, yes.
I wonder how you could make such an assertion, since you know that there are many cases, reported cases, where large doses of arsenic have been taken 4, 5, 6, or even 7 days prior to death, and where you still find a large amount of arsenic remaining in the body. You know that, don't you?
Yes, but in such...
Similarly, you also know that the symptoms Mrs. Armstrong displayed are entirely consistent with chronic disease of the kidneys. Bright's disease, for example.
Yes, but that leaves out the change that occurred when she entered the asylum. The improvement in her condition can only be explained by...
But wait, if you would. You mean in hospital she stopped vomiting?
Yes, and her general condition...
But, Professor, is that also not consistent with Bright's disease? Do sufferers not frequently experience a remission, only to fall foul of the disease again after a certain period of apparent improvement? Professor?
Yes?
Thank you.
The jury members noticeably lean forward on their seats. A small spot of red appears on Sir Edward's face as he approaches the professor for the second time.
Professor Spilsbury, despite what you have just heard, do you still believe the fatal dose was given within 24 hours of her death?
Yes.
You are sure of that?
Yes.
Would you explain to the court why?
From the distribution of the arsenic in her alimentary canal, I have no doubt of this. The 2 grains of arsenic found in her liver indicate a good deal of arsenic had been absorbed during the last few days of life.
Do you believe she could have taken this arsenic herself?
No, I don't. During the period I'm describing, she must have been practically paralyzed, without any power of coordination in the muscles of her hands and feet.
In other words, she could not have killed herself.
No, it's out of the question.
The jury retire to consider their verdict. It's a responsibility that Mr. Greenacre doesn't envy them. Now, at the last minute, his curiosity is reignited. He glances again at the face of his old colleague, and for once, his look is returned. Those eyes, a flash of blue, and then the head is turned away. The jury deliberates for barely 50 minutes. Mr. Greenacre stands to greet them.
Foreman of the jury, have you reached a verdict?
We have.
Do you find the prisoner guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
On the 31st of May 1922, a small, neat figure stands in the execution shed at Gloucester Prison. Excessively talkative in life, Herbert Armstrong does not choose to speak on this occasion. Before the hood is placed over his head, witnesses notice the colour of his eyes. They are light blue with a glittering brilliancy, as though there is a light behind them. They are the colour of forget-me-nots.
The Case of the Dandelion Killer, written by Michael Butt, the cast was Herbert Rowe Armstrong, James Aubrey. Mrs. Armstrong, Frances Jeter. Greenacre, Johan Meredith. Pollock, Terence Edmund. Jenny, Arabelle Jones. Bennett, Vincent Brimble. Martin, Gavin Muir. Spilsbury, Tony Osoba. Other parts were played by members of the cast. John Mortimer presents Sensational British Trials, directed by Celia de Wolfe.
Lament for a Maker is part of Michael Innes Inspector Appleby mystery series. Something is amiss at a remote castle isolated in the Scottish Highlands. Raving recluse Ranald Guthrie, much despised Laird of Atcheney, has been wandering his halls obsessively reciting an old Scottish poem, Time a Mortis Conturbat Me.
Send for the deed, remit is known. Best is that we for deed dispone. After our deed, that live may we. Timor mortis conturbat me. Deed, the Ranald Guthrie, deed and mortem. Deed and mortem. Timor mortis conturbat me.
Lament for a Macker, the classic mystery story by Michael Innes, dramatised for radio by Kathleen Jamie, with John Shedden as Aljo Wedderburn. Lament for a Macker.
I must begin my record of the curious events at Castle Erchenay with a confession. From the very beginning I had the gravest doubts which I cannot say subsequent events resolved, as to whether the right sort of person had been dispatched. Writers to the Signet in Edinburgh, like myself, are for the most part happily associated with the quieter, the more spacious, the truly learned aspects of the law. The pleasure of conveyancing, together with discreet superintendence of bankruptcies, alimonies, and insanities among the best Scottish families. We've been reluctant to engage ourselves in the lurid limelight of the criminal law. Mr. Bell was later to tell me that those events which befell at Castle Erchenay were but the plain work of the devil from start to finish. It's not for me to say whether Ranald Guthrie was in league with the devil, or indeed that Lucifer himself was enthroned at Castle Erchenay, whatever the good folk of Kincaid village muttered amongst themselves. That muttering grew loud when Isa Murdoch, the little maid at Erchenay, packed her trunk one night and fled.
Sin he is all my brother ta'en. He will not let me live alone. On force I'm on his next prey be. Timor mortis conturbat me. Isa Murdoch.
What's that? Oh, there's Ranald. Mr. Guthrie said I ever heard.
Open the house. Can Mr. Walter Kennedy, on point of death, lies there. Great truth it were that so should be. Timor mortis conturbat me.
How long since these were open, Mrs. Harker?
And it would be about 50 years since the old lair's time. Arthur Spider's not an awful bother to you, Isa Murdoch.
Oh, they're just wee creatures. Not like the...
Not like the rat.
Oh, it's a picture. They're all decayed, the curtains. They've been so lovely once. I've never seen these rooms.
I've never seen just cobwebs. I don't like cobwebs, Miss Christine.
Give me the broom, I'll help.
Do you know what the laird is about? Is he going to hold with the gentry after all these years? Or will there be balls and musical evenings and these great boxes sent from Edinburgh?
I don't know.
And he's wanting lunch in the great chamber today and the gallery opened. Have you been in there yourself, Miss Christine? The gallery?
No, I've never been there. Uncle closed up most of the house when he came home.
Christine, I had a notion to lunch in here today.
If you will, Uncle. I fear it's very dusty.
I've given instruction for that to be dealt with, and the lumber to be removed. But not this table. Flemish, I believe. Very fine. Oh, do take your place. I will ring. Yes, at the end there.
2 more boxes arrived today from Edinburgh, Uncle. One was booked.
Good. Have Hardcastle bring them to the Tower. And the other?
Provisions, Uncle. Fine tins of fruit, chutney.
Ah, Isa Murdoch. What have you brought us?
A bit stewed rabbit, Laird, and a jug of milk.
Then at least serve it on a silver dish, if you will. There will be one somewhere. And we will have a bottle from the cellar.
The cellar, Mr. Guthrie?
Uncle would like some wine, Isa.
What are you gawking at, girl? Is the gallery opened?
No, Mr. Guthrie.
Great Ruth aware that so should be. Temper Martis conturat me.
I'll get you your wine, Uncle.
What? No, my dear. A glass of milk.
Have you got the key, Miss Christie?
No. Uncle said nothing about a key. Perhaps it's just a bolt. He said the door was behind a curtain.
Here, it's here.
You must have been in a high passion that day, Miss Christine.
Well, you know, my uncle would never employ a locksmith if he could board it up himself. But he must have been in a fury indeed.
Petrus, the flower, the noble
coming.
Marcus flower, the monk of berry and gower, all three.
Uncle, at the door of the gallery.
Is it opened?
It's boarded. The nails are driven in so deep. No.
Thomas! Thomas! Bring me my axe and see it fell clean. Yes, I know how the nails are. Did I not do it myself? I suppose I will have to undo it myself. If I'm to have it open, I must have it open. No, thank you, Thomas. Stand back.
It's all right. Uncle, please.
No, Christine, stand back. Christine, I believe you've never seen the gallery. A most interesting collection of family portraits. I must change my clothes before dinner. Hardcastle will clear the debris. Do look around at your leisure.
Aye. Aeneas was undoubtedly the right man for the job. When Mrs. McRattle of Dunk poisoned her head keeper by injecting sheep dip into a haggis with a hypodermic syringe, it was by Aeneas the matter was adjusted. Aeneas was just the man for Ercole. However, such were the events of the day before Isa Murdoch left the Muckle house. It was, though, the events of the night which went clean over the head of the girl.
Thomas! You've shown no sign of this before. Thomas, away with you! Shoo! Oh, no. No, you don't. Oh, break my neck. If I get through this night, I'll never spend another under this roof. Mr. Guthrie! Oh, no!
He will. It's in the blood. And by the great God, he will. What for would it not work, man, eh? What for would it not work?
Yes, Aeneas was just the man for Ercole, and was indeed dispatched, only to break a leg hastily changing trains at Perth. I need not detail the alternative arrangements I endeavoured to make. They failed. On the afternoon of Boxing Day, I set out for Dunwinnie myself. My annoyance was increased by the discovery that I was to have Clan Clackett as a travelling companion. Clan Clackett is a chilly bore. We were on the Forth Bridge before he spoke.
Well, Wedderburn, you're going north. It's a holiday you're taking, Wedderburn.
A professional journey. Notice, Clan Clackett, that the fleet is in.
What's your station?
I change at Perth. May I offer you Blackwoods?
Oh, yes, Blackwood. Thank you. Excellent. You were saying, Wedderburn, that you changed at Perth for...
Dunwinnie.
Oh, your business is there?
My business, my dear Clanklacket, is there or thereabouts.
The Frasers of Mervyn?
No.
The Grants of Kildoon?
No.
The Guthries of Erkenny?
I am acquainted with none of them.
For over an hour we pursued the eccentricities of the Frasers of Mervyn. On these matters Clanklacket is notoriously encyclopedic. My knowledge of Guthrie was confined to that gleaned from the Morning Scotsman. I ventured to ask, simulating a yawn, the Guthries of Erkenny. They're interesting folk. And for 40 minutes I was to learn exactly how picturesque, by which time we were with them still on the far side of the 18th century. Mercifully, we were to arrive at Ranald before we arrived at Perth.
Take Ranald Guthrie, the present laird. Once more the same morbid constitution. I believe he's artistically inclined.
Dear me.
Sent abroad, Australia. 3 or 4 times as far away as Canada. Considerable advantage. Ranald didn't like it. On first seeing Fremantle Harbour, he endeavoured to commit suicide, saved by the bravery of his elder brother, Ian. Of course, he came home when he inherited.
Ian had died?
Yes, there was some tragedy. Ranald, an unstable person, as I say, was upset, greatly upset. When he came home, he lived in a very peculiar manner. I understand that he still does, and that he is, in fact, a miser and a recluse.
Was.
I beg your pardon, Weatherman?
Ranald Guthrie has just died. And he is Perth. I'm afraid I must hurry. Pray, Clanklacket, keep Blackwoods. Goodbye.
I succeeded in reaching Kincaid just short of 9 o'clock. It is the merest hamlet, and I counted myself fortunate in securing simple but adequate accommodation at an inn laconically known as the Arms. Precise information would remain unavailable until the following morning. Meanwhile, I did not think it wise altogether to neglect the voice of rumour.
Ah, Mrs. Roberts, would you be so good as to bring me a...
What you'll be in need of is a nice cup of malted milk.
Yes, it is exactly what I was going to ask for. A nice cup of malted milk, if you please.
It is proper to testify that the potation with which she returned was not unpotable. Moreover, she was inclined to be talkative. Mr. Guthrie's death was actual enough, but in listening to Mrs. Roberts, I was listening to the voice of rumour, to the lingering myth-making faculty of simple folk, revenge, murder, mutilations, and a ghost. And must I confess to an unwonted quickening of the pulse of the senior partner of Wedderburn and MacTodd?
Mrs. Roberts, have many folks seen the ghost?
Faith, yes.
You yourself?
Faith, no.
Then who?
Well, the first would be Mistress McLaren. The pump in her yard was frozen fast, and she was going down the road for water when she saw the uncouthy thing right afore her in the moonlight. Oh, she gave a stretch, poor creature, that was heard by half Kincaid, and you wouldn't have better proof than that.
Oh, doubtless.
Like this it was. Ooh!
Yes, no, indeed. And this Mistress McLaren,
Yes.
does she often see ghosts?
Oh, fancy you asking that, sir. A Highland body she is, and second-sighted. It was her that foresaw the dafty Thomas come louping through the snow with news of Guthrie's death. And it was her that knew Guthrie had the evil eye.
Excuse me, Mr. Wedderburn, sir. I wonder if you would see a caller. Ewan Bell it is. He apologizes for the late hour. I can hardly refuse, Mr. Roberts. And you'll be wanting a toddy, I'm thinking, in this dreich weather.
Mr. Wedderburn, you take another malted milk.
Yes.
Mr. Bell will forgive me if I describe him as venerable and magnificent. His shoulders might have been that of a smith rather than of a cobbler. He bowed to me gravely.
Mr. Wedderburn, I am given to understand you are to represent the family interest in the probing of the sad affair at the Mucklehouse.
I am giving advice to the young American lady, yes.
You'll have heard some queer-like talk, I've no doubt. But I have a thought that if there's any talk of it being other than an accident that's befallen at Erkenny, I will say this.
The departure of Miss Mathers and the lad Lindsay was at the bidding of the laird. That is, if I'm not starting in medias res.
Mr. Bell, you interest me. May I invite you to take something against this very dreich weather?
Just against the weather, Mr. Wedderburn.
Mr. Guthrie was not well liked.
Well, when word got round Kincaid that Guthrie had done himself a fatal mischief, there were a few that were sorry, and many that were right glad. Of all the dwellers in the glens hereabouts, it was only of Ranald Guthrie you could honestly say he was as mean as an Englishman. If I repaired his old shoon once, I repaired them 100 times. He even cleared the home farm of its folk for no good reason, feed a shepherd, and that was another bit of land gone back to the sheep. I doubt there'll soon be nothing left of the old Scotland, Mr. Wedderburn. Only a pack of Highland gillies to lick the dumps of a feckless grouse-raising gentry. That and a few million coarse Irish creatures starving on the Clyde.
Yes, most succinctly put, Mr. Bell. Pray continue.
Well, Guthrie lived alone. That is but for Christine and the two Hardcastles, the serpents. There was a wee maid called Isa Murdoch, but she fled his madness. Ever going about with his eye fixed on the middle ear and muttering names.
Names?
Henderson, Kennedy.
Oh, most exceptional.
Oh, you're not a literary man, Mr. Wedderburn, eh? Oh, well, no matter. Christine Mathers was Guthrie's niece and ward. She was brought to the castle as an infant. There's a power of evil idle talk in this parish, and I repeat it only that you might have full sight of the story. But some said she was not Guthrie's niece, but his daughter.
Oh?
And some that he brought her up, not out of duty, but to make a mistress of her.
Dear me.
Oh, there's ever tongues claking in Kincaid.
The myth-making faculty of our simple folk.
Idle gossip, I'd cried. With the daft talk of what befell the corpse, well, you'll have heard that the fingers were chopped from its right hand. The hanging of Neil Lindsay is on the lips of every goffus and bat-faced old buddy in the parish. You maybe think Aristotle is some potion from the dispensary, but the story of the old feud between the Guthries and the Lindsays is told to the babes in arms.
I'm very much afraid, Mr. Bell, that despite professional involvement with many of the old Scottish families, this nugget of history has yet to reach my ears.
The hour is late. Let it be enough to say that before the Reformation, there was a Lindsay lay with the wife of a Guthrie. And the Guthrie found out, and hacked the lecherous fingers from him before he sent him home to die. And that was the beginning of the feud betwixt the Guthries and the Lindsays. And the beginning of this sorry chapter would be about the 11th of November. A great snow fell on Armistice morn, and after, a hurricane fit to bring down another Tay bridge and rip great sheets of lead from the crazy battlements of Castle Erskine. More snow, a bit drift, and the place was snowed up entirely. It's a wonder the maid Isa Murdoch got through that night. After her, it was Miss Stratton was the last of the village to see Guthrie alive, before the Dapty Thomas brought the news down the glen.
Who is the schoolmistress?
Aye, joins a sharp eye to a long nose. No doubt it was the inquisitiveness of her that took her the long way round to visit her auntie in Kildune. Or maybe it's her being near Skite on the athletic ideal, or the lure of the wanderer as she'd have it herself. It's enough that the last weekend of November, up the glen to Erskine, she went. So when the full blast of the storm came down, she held on past her usual track and was presently dropping down to the empty biggins of Erskine Farm. Aye, and seeing Christine putting them.
Oh, praise be. There's Christine. Oh, there's weather to be out to. Christine! Oh, Christine! There's Mathers! Isn't it awful weather to be out? Oh, dear, she's gone. There's a giant sleepwalking. Christine, are you not going home this weather? Oh, I can't see that. It's gone. Oh, what'll I do? Oh, is there not a door open? Oh, At last. Soaked! Oh, I'm soaked! Oh, oh, that's lot of you.
You'll notice there's ever a bit nakedness in Kincaid gossip, Mr. Wedderburn.
Come in, man. It's you. Where's Christine? It's not Christine you'll be seeing today, Neil Lindsay. Nor any day henceforth. Now I've found you out. The two of you. Where is she, Guthrie? I chanced to follow Christine and found her, finding your message. I sent her back to the house and waited myself. Was I wrong? Do you complain? She's her own mistress. Not if you're seeking to make her yours. I want to marry her, Guthrie. Can't be. She wants to marry me. It can't be. We're marrying, Guthrie. And it's not you can stop us. That I can, Neil Lindsay. For how? Christine's underage, and you know it. That will mend. And there's another question. Indeed? What is Christine to you? I am not you. Say that again. Married or unmarried, I say. And if it's not too late, she'll never be burned by you. Christ, forgive me. You that might be my grandfather. I'm sorry, Guthrie. That old bad blood that is between us. You pay. What? Madam, I understand you're in some distress.
That was the last anyone but myself heard of Ranald Guthrie before the tragedy. It was the night of 28th November Miss Strachan spent at the Muckle Hoose. It was on the 10th December, just before the great snows all but closed the glens entirely, that Christine Mathers came to me with her story. Came to you, Mr. Bell? Oh, she and I had been long acquainted. The first nurse that Guthrie ever got for her was my own sister's child. Uncle Ewan, I was to her. A secret queen she grew to be, but fine I knew what had befallen the lass long ere the schoolmistress brought the unlucky name of the lad to Kincaid, Mr. Wedderburn. We chanced to remember what young people are. Wedded to him and bedded to him she would be, and the two of them would away to Canada, where he had a cousin would set him in the way of the work he wanted. But Guthrie was dead set against it. Absolute, with a rage of passion burning in him. No more was Neil easy. He was right passionate against Guthrie in his turn, and was all for storming Erskine like young Lochinvar and marrying Christine in secret. But Christine's instinct was against it. She felt Guthrie had some power over her she could break only by fighting him in the open. When I asked her, perhaps in foolish enough words, "And you really want to marry him?" she looked at me almost mockingly for a moment, and just said,
"I'm driven." Have you seen my uncle lately?
I haven't seen him indeed this year past.
But you'll have heard talk.
Well, I haven't lost my hearing yet, Christine.
Yes, there's always talk in Kincaid, I'm sure. But have you heard that he's gone mad?
Oh, don't fuss yourself over that. They were saying no less of him before you were born. It's what they would say of any laird that didn't talk grouse and oats and pretend to be cut greedy on a Sunday.
He's mad. There are provisions as if we were going to be besieged at Erskine. And he's bought a big crate of books.
Oh, surely the laird has ever been a great reader.
Yes, but he doesn't buy books. And these are something he's never paid heed to before. Medical books. Up there in the tower, he's poring over them night after night.
Oh, Christine, would they be books about the mind?
No, the ones I've seen aren't. Why did Isa Murdoch leave us?
She was easy frightened. If you chanced to hear your uncle holding in with any folk called Walter Kennedy and Robert Henderson.
In Dunfermline he has ta'en brun with Mr. Robert Henderson. Sir John the Rawson brast his he, Timor mortis conturbat me. Quoth Dunbar when he was sick, and quoth my uncle in his gallery, also sick maybe.
So, Mr. Wedderburn, you will perceive there was more to Guthrie's conduct than could be accounted for by the love between Christine and Neil. Oh, dear. It's late now, Mr. Wedderburn, and I've all but finished.
We drop more, Mr. Bell.
No, that's enough. And I'll tell you, if I may, the queer end of this part of the tale.
Well, Mr. Bell, your company is most congenial, and the interest of your tale increases with the hour.
Well, then came the snow, and Kincaid was cut off from the world, and Erchany from Kincaid again. All except for Thomas, who got through with a letter.
Uncle Ewan Bell, I was a little fool with my fancies. Will you forgive me? It's all right. I'm sure it's all right, and I only have to wait till Christmas Day. Uncle Ranald came in this morning. He seemed in a rare, pleased mood. Suddenly he said softly, "Must you have him, Christine?" I just said yes, no more. He said, "You shall go with him." And then he spoke harshly of the disgrace, and that we must go if we did go once and forever, that there was money for me that I should have, and that Neil should come for me at Christmas, and that we might away to Canada. But he said he would have no wedding, or word of a wedding in these parts, and that I needn't repeat words I won't, and shall soon have the chance to forget. But I won't forget you, Uncle Ewan. Oh, I'm so happy, and yet afraid. I'm free, I almost think. Goodbye, and love, dear Ewan Bell. I shall be safe with Neil, and he with me.
It was right anxiously I spent the next 3 days, Mr. Wedderburn. It was when the few folk in Kincaid that will admit Christmas a feast of the kirk were at service that Thomas came again.
Deed, the Ronald Guthrie Stephen Malta.
I was awakened in the morning by a clamour proceeding from the assembled young of Kincaid. It was occasioned by the appearance at the tail of the village of a tall and slender youth, bearing on his shoulder the prime cause, this, of the juvenile excitement, implements, which I presently identified as ski sticks and ski. It was to be conjectured that here was a visitor from Erchany. I dressed and hurried downstairs.
I'm Noel Gilby. I think you must be the gentleman who's been good enough to come and help us.
My name, I said, is Wedderburn, and I have come to give what help I can.
Then, sir, begin by offering me breakfast.
No, my first mistake was to stop in the village. Now, you know how it is. I got out the map and saw it would be so much quicker such a way. Alas, I did about 10 miles on trains, and I didn't like it a bit. So I stopped in the village to inquire.
Gilby, you puppy.
Hello? I say, would you be so good as to show me the road south?
South, mister?
Yes, London.
London, is it? There, yonder's it.
So, yonder yours truly went, slithering and plunging through 2 feet of snow. A mile on, I picked up a tail light. Home by Christmas.
Wow, that's just sweet of you, stranger.
I'm so sorry. Like a fool. I was following your lights. What happened?
I guess I came off the road.
Are you hurt?
Really offended. Warm your hands, why don't you, on the radiator?
Well...
There was a pub back in that village, Kincaid. Maybe we could get back to that.
I think we'll make for the house straight ahead. You have a suitcase?
In the wreckage. Hieronimo, 'tis time for thee to trudge.
A pleasantly literary lady, Sybil. What ensued was a sort of pocket edition of The Worst Journey in the World. It was dank, cold, and there was, of course, snow. Sometimes we fell into it in all sorts of diverting ways, like people in the Christmas edition of Punch. Child Roland to the Dark Tower came. The lights got out.
No, look, it's coming down. See? A spiral staircase. Come on.
Oh, Moat.
Give me the torch.
There, drawbridge.
Would you mind very much sleeping in the haunted room?
I'm not superstitious, Mr. Gilby. Come on.
Is that the doctor?
We are two people that have had a motor accident.
Oh, well, thank you.
Charming chap.
That's enough, Hardcastle. Please come in. Welcome to Ercony. My name is Guthrie.
How strange. My name is Guthrie, too.
Mr. Wedderburn, I received the immediate impression that this Mr. Guthrie was mad.
Mad, Mr. Gilby?
Mad, Mr. Wedderburn. I had the oddest feeling as he looked at us that he was really plotting us on an invisible graph or giving us our places on an invisible board.
We must find you rooms and a fire.
Not homely.
Certainly not.
Do you suppose he ever feeds the dogs? And who is that?
Hardcastle, have your wife light fires in these rooms.
Aye, Laird.
Miss Guthrie, your room, and yours, Mr. Gilby, on the left. We will meet for supper at 9. Mr. Gilby, Miss Guthrie, my niece, Miss Christine Mathers.
How do you do? I'm sorry to hear of your misfortune. I hope you will be comfortable with us until the thaw.
Comfortable?
Please, sit down. Mrs. Hardcastle, some caviar, Miss Guthrie. Perhaps you're not partial to caviar. Mr. Gilby.
Yes, it was what North Britons appear to call a scunner. We were to find comfort amongst signs of either the most improbable poverty or a pathological parsimony. The dogs, Mr. Wedderburn, were starving. The table was ill-lit by one tallow candle, and we were served caviar on a silver plate.
And have you friends nearby, Mr. Gilby, who would know that you had taken the Ercony Road?
None, I'm afraid.
A pity. And your car is badly damaged? Mm-hmm. Yours too, Miss Guthrie?
It was rather too dark to tell, I'm afraid.
Of course.
By the time Christine had taken Sybil out of the hall, I was next to hypnotized by that clock. Had it suddenly gesticulated with both its hands and cried out, "Sleep no more, Macbeth doth murder sleep," I wouldn't have been surprised.
Mr. Gilby, the snow may detain you some time, and you must excuse our simple way of living.
Miss Mathers is being put to the most awful trouble. Miss Guthrie and I are terribly grateful.
Mr. Gilby, I am glad you found your way here. Hardcastle! Hardcastle, if the lad Lindsay comes, though I don't think he can get up in the snow, you must let him in. I'll see him once again.
If you believe me, Laird, the lad's black dangerous.
What's that, man?
I say Neil Lindsay means mischief.
Lindsay can come up to the tower. Mr. Gilby, the ladies?
And then we set off down a long corridor.
Timor.
Mr. Guthrie?
Timor mortis conturbat me.
I'm sorry?
Sir Gilbert Hay ended as he. Timor mortis conturbat me.
And I swear the fear of death was stark on him, Mr. Wedderburn. Then the rhythm of his murmuring changed, and he cried out,
"Oh, my America, my newfound land."
Yes, a singular gentleman, Mr. Guthrie.
Oh, I'll say. But it struck me then I'd found the reason for the indescribable Hardcastle's calling out about the doctor. The laird was having a bout of this mild madness, and the household was waiting to smuggle in a leech. Would you mind terribly if I rang for more toast?
Oh, no.
Breakfast at Ercony were rather a joyless affair. Now, the next morning, Christmas Eve...
And were the rats an awful bother to you, sir, in the night?
Yeah.
There's an awful rats about Ercony.
Indeed, there are. Good morning, Noel. You slept well?
To tell the truth...
It's the rats.
Quite.
Mrs. Hardcastle, do you have many visitors?
Ah, the laird's our narrow. There are few in these parts nearer going than Guthrie of Ercony. It's the rats.
The rats?
Mrs. Hardcastle?
The Guthries of I had black imaginings. He thinks the rats are fair eating him up, him and all his substance. And he won't even spend the siller on the poison for them. He says he prefers his wee penknife.
He spears the rat?
Aye, and recht loud the creature squeal. But no, it's a hatchet. Sharpening and sharpening it yesterday he was. And he cried out to me recht fearsome to settle accounts with a great rat, Mrs. Hardcastle. I wish he'd settle accounts with them all. I wish there were no rats.
Couldn't Mr. Hardcastle?
Ah, my man's fell unkind. It's the rat nature working on him. More and more my man's like a great grey rat. And what'll become of us when I canna any longer tell man frae rat?
You'll agree, Mr. Wedderburn, that Mrs. Hardcastle has the knack of posing awkward questions.
She has plainly a touch of genius as an imaginative psychologist.
After breakfast, Christine took us to a sort of gallery place full of dead Guthries. After luncheon, she bowed us into a billiards room with the very table I swear that Noah played to while the tedious hour. And so we seemed doomed. I choose my words with care. Spending Christmas Eve at Castle Erkenny.
Well, if you'll excuse me, I'll retire now. Uncle's in his tower, so please ring for Mrs. Hardcastle if there's anything at all that you need.
Thank you, Miss Magers. Good night.
Good night.
No, I'm cold to the bone. I'm going to read in bed. Good night.
Yes, I shall to bed too very shortly. I have in my head a plan for a rat-proof tent. Right, you blighters. Know thy enemy. Let's see how you like a poker. Missed. Bold and bolder, aren't they? Well, let's... Good Lord. Mr. Wedderburn, I had seen big rats and small, brown, black, and piebald. Let me tell you that the appearance of a pink or blue variety could not have occasioned in me more surprise than what I now beheld. I was looking at a learned rat.
A learned rat, Mr. Gilbert?
And there were more. Rats, that is, lugging about with them little paper scrolls. Rather like students who've just been given a neatly printed degree. I saw 2 or 3. Come out, wherever you are. Right. Ah. Oh. It was a learned one. There's luck. Let's have a look. Bring help secretly to tower top. Urgent. Oh, my giddy aunt. I dressed. It didn't occur to me that the thing was melodramatic, or absurd, or a fantasy of Guthrie's. 24 hours spent at Erkenny had conditioned me to taking the appeal of the learned rat in my stride. I simply wondered how best to make the top of the tower. At that, I remembered Sybil Guthrie's electric torch.
Sybil! Sybil! It's no! I'm coming in! Sybil! Where are you?
Suspicion became certainty. There was no one in the room. But at that, a candle flickered in the corridor. I emerged expecting Sybil. Mr. Hardcastle,
Sure you were.
Mr. Hardcastle,
Leaves compliments to you, sir. Says, would you join them for a nightcap in the tower?
Yes. As it happens, I was just going there myself. It wanted 5 minutes of midnight, the very eve of Christmas. What's that?
Rats, just...
Who's that?
Rats, I tell you. Come on. With a turn to climb yet. Mind the stairs. Nearly there.
It was then, Mr. Wedderburn.
Oh, great God. If I didn't warn them. Lindsay!
Out of my way!
Slinking wee rat! Come back! Never mind him now, Mr. Gilby. Come on, man. Up. Come on.
Sybil!
You limmer.
Shut up, Hardcastle. Sybil, where is Guthrie?
He has fallen from the tower.
Now, there are only 2 rooms at the top of the tower, Mr. Wedderburn. Guthrie's study and what I took to be his bedroom. Both have small doors onto the parapet, which completely islands the top of the tower.
Yes?
The first thing I did was to let myself out into the wind and darkness. It was my impression that there'd been a good deal of coming and going on that parapet, almost a commotion. And the snow was disturbed in such a way that it was clear that the trapdoor had been recently opened.
The trapdoor, Mr. Gilbert?
Oh, forgive me. The tower is reached by 2 staircases.
Ah, yes.
The one which I had followed with Hardcastle, which opens into Guthrie's study. The other, which is quite separate, a tiny spiral that winds from the bottom of the tower and comes out through a trapdoor directly onto the parapet.
Yes, yes.
This, as I say, had been open, but was now bolted from below. Another thing was clear to me. Unless he was drunk or really demented, Ranald Guthrie couldn't have taken that drop by accident. It falls sheer to the moat far beneath, and even with the depth of snow, no one could have survived that fall.
Sybil, I think you should wait here.
I'm coming with you. Take my torch.
Oh, very well. Oh, Lord, look at Hardcastle. And what will become of us when we can't any longer tell man from rat? Mr. Hardcastle, do wait. We have a torch.
You can see the lamp still burning in his study. Look up.
I'd much rather not.
He fell from the parapet outside his little bedroom, which puts it farther round. Noel, shine the torch, please. There.
Mr. Wedderburn, a man can cry out in agony and fear, fall 200 feet through the air, break his neck, and look at the end of it like a babe asleep in the cradle. A trick of the muscles at the ultimate moment, no doubt, but Guthrie in his dust had returned to innocence, as if some artist had taken a sponge and wiped the baser lines of that sinister face clean away. I composed the body as best I could, and waited till Hardcastle brought a sheet. Between us then, and with some difficulty, for Guthrie had been a strong and powerful man, we got him into the cellar and onto a trestle table.
Mr. Gilby, you'll have had a look at the body. It might have been robbed or the like.
The police will inquire into that.
But, sorry, we might just give a bit look and see.
Mr. Hardcastle.
That's murder.
That remains to be seen, Mr. Hardcastle.
I tell you, the tinkling Lindsay mischieved and murdered him. And now he's a woe with the lassie.
Come upstairs.
The good Lord did. And all that is a war. Well, let's
What's that, devil? Everyone, please! Will everyone please be quiet? And Miss Guthrie, Sybil, where is Miss Mavis?
Gone.
Thomas, do you think you could get down to Kincaid? Mr. Hardcastle, can you make Thomas understand he must get to Kincaid if he can and fetch the police?
He can, fine.
Oh, Sybil, come with me. The scene of the crime.
But Noel, there was no crime. I told you, he simply fell.
How did he manage that?
He simply fell. Do you insist on something more lurid?
There will be a tremendous number of questions asked, you know. Where everyone was and why.
And I should practice my reply
I
on
should
you.
like you to.
I was up here spying around.
Enterprising of you.
This household kind of got me curious, and I just felt like hiding behind doors and listening. I got the instinct.
Very well, Sybil. You have been prying and listening. Go ahead.
This tower had been intriguing me. It's so romantic.
Cut it out, Sybil.
Okay. I saw a light moving about in the gallery about 11:30. I couldn't sleep and thought if Guthrie was in the gallery, the tower might be open to inspection. I took my torch and climbed the tower staircase.
It went better than I dared hope. I looked through the keyhole into Guthrie's study. Guthrie wasn't there, so I opened the door, just a crack, and went in.
Well, now, Laird Reynolds.
And then I heard footsteps on the stair. Noel, I had no place to hide, and I just couldn't stand there and face him, so I did a really dumb thing. I let myself out onto the parapet. At that moment, the wind dropped, and I could just hear...
Mr. Lindsay, sit down. Thank you, Hardcastle.
And I was watching from the parapet. I couldn't hear clearly. The wind got up again, and it was so cold out there, Noel.
They were talking, angrily?
Earnestly, formally, both stood up. Lindsay shook his head, and they moved towards the door.
They were in view all the time?
All the time. They shook hands at the door, formally. Lindsay went out, and Guthrie turned. I could see his face. He looked, I don't know how to put it, tragic and broken. He took a key from his pocket and made for the little bedroom there. He disappeared, shut the door behind him. It seemed about a minute or maybe half a minute. Then I heard a cry. I stood another minute, then tried to make a dash for it. You walked in on me.
Sybil, you said he has fallen from the tower. How did you know?
I tell you, I knew Noel Gilby. That interview had somehow crushed the man. I saw his death on his face. He was next to mad anyhow, and when his plans went wrong...
He had failed, you mean, to buy Lindsay off. Couldn't bear the thought of losing his niece.
Something like that. And it should be lurid enough for you.
Well, that was a useful trial spin, Sybil.
In other words, I'm lying.
You are lurking here. Guthrie goes into the bedroom, there is a cry, we rush in, and your mind takes a great leap in the dark. A leap to the truth, maybe. But you see how strange it could be made to look. Only the fact that you have no real connection with Guthrie is between you and positive suspicion.
Noel, shall I tell you the truth?
Oh, for goodness sake, do.
I am Ranald Guthrie's heir.
I wasn't altogether surprised, Mr. Wedderburn. That there were wheels within wheels in Sybil Guthrie's relations with Erskine is something that I'd had a dim sense of for some time. You will see now, as I did, that I'd come upon her in the middle of a more than ingenious plan to gate-crash on Erskine. A plan into which she incorporated me magnificently and in her stride. A resolute driving of her car over a bank I recall with positive awe.
She was really plotting you on an invisible graph or giving you your place on an invisible board.
Mr. Wedderburn?
Your very words with reference to the late Laird of Erskine. That the two were related is becoming obvious.
He tricked us, Noel. I was just a child, and my father died. He tricked us out of the rightful inheritance that should have come to my mother and me through my father. So, when we heard rumor that he was mad and irresponsible, having an interest in the estate, we tried in various ways to discover the true state of affairs. Then, finding myself in England, I thought I might drive north and see for myself.
And now you're in an awful scrape, Sybil.
Yes, I am, Noel. I think I'd better have a lawyer or something.
Yes, I think you had. In fact, you have. I just wired.
Noel Gilby, explain yourself.
Guthrie dead, Hardcastle muttering murder, and you being found up here. We must protect ourselves, mustn't we? And I have an uncle in Edinburgh, a soldier. He has the Scottish command. You'll see the right sort of persons dispatched.
Oh, say, you have a neck. Noel Gilby.
The point is, Sybil, so do you.
And, Mr. Wedderburn, you were good enough to come. I didn't think anyone would really want to hang Sybil. I rather hoped they'd be able to hang Hardcastle, though I couldn't see just how.
Excuse me, Mr. Wedderburn. I wondered if you would see a caller. It's Ewan Bell, sir, as was with you last night.
Oh, yes, of course. Ah, Mr. Bell.
Well, now that I'm back in civilization, I shall take on supplies. I believe the post office will carry a tin of John Cotton.
I'll not detain you, Mr. Wedderburn. I just wanted to show you the very letter Christine wrote. The affair is heavy with me, and I wanted to know I'd made myself plain.
That the young person's departure was at the bidding of the Laird?
Just that. And as for the laird driving them out in secret and at midnight into a storm, it's just what would fit the black humour of the man.
You really think he did that?
I do.
And that Guthrie then committed suicide in some sort of despair?
I think that's the conclusion we'll be come to, Mr. Wedderburn.
Mr. Bell, I must be getting up to Erskine.
You look dissatisfied.
I'm very grateful to you for coming in, Mr. Bell. You're an important witness, and I shall no doubt see you at this afternoon's inquest.
And you think, Mr. Wedderburn, it will be suicide proven?
I think the police or others must find Lindsay and Miss Mathers.
As a historical monument, Erskine is, I suppose, of quite minor importance. But my first impression of it as the car turned a bend and I sighted the castle across a final arm of the frozen loch was of something darkly powerful and inviolably lonely. Looking at the sheer lines of the tower from a distance, I could understand Gilby's instant knowledge that the man who'd fallen from that height was inevitably dead.
Mr. Gilby, I take it that nothing untoward was discovered about Guthrie's body?
I don't understand.
Well, as the story runs in Kincaig, this desperate Lindsay had chopped off a number of the fingers.
Oh, I really think the Scotch are
the bloody limit.
No, Guthrie's fingers are intact.
Another thing. Your impression of Lindsay when he passed you on the stairs, you received an extraordinarily vivid impression of passion. Was that impression accurate?
Yes, I don't think my impression was wrong.
Now, about the man Hardcastle. You're something of a prejudiced witness, and you're inclined to credit him with some hidden motive in the affair.
You wait till you see him.
One last point. You thought Guthrie was mad.
I thought him mad from the first few minutes. Only I used the word loosely. He was broken, fragmented. He was mad. As the heroes were mad when the Furies were hunting them down.
A most illuminating remark, Mr. Gilby. I've always maintained against our education reformers that there is the greatest utility in the grand old fortifying classical curriculum.
Again.
You have minded my poison, Mr. Gilby. You'll not have disremembered it.
Here you are, Mrs. Hardcastle. Mr. Wedderburn, Mrs. Hardcastle.
Aye. You'd best know at once there's a terrible number of rats at Erskine. I'm fooling it no more. But don't tell my man whilst he sets them at me.
The dogs, Mrs. Hardcastle?
The rats.
The hall's this way, Mr. Wedderburn, and the police are already here. Quite an operation.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. A wee bit on the chilly side. My name is Spate, Inspector Spate from Dunwinnie. You are Mr. Wedderburn?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Gilby I've already met. I don't know how much information you've already gathered.
I have, I believe, some grip on the situation, Inspector. You have no doubt traced the young people who were packed off by the late Mr. Guthrie.
Packed off? I don't know about that.
A point that will emerge, Inspector. And where have they got to?
Strangely enough, we've had no word of them yet, but then they've good reason to lie pretty low.
You have grounds for believing that the young Mr. Lindsay has committed some crime.
The lad pitched Guthrie to his death. I haven't a doubt of it.
I think there may be some evidence in direct rebuttal.
Ah, well, to be sure there's Miss Guthrie.
Yes, Miss Guthrie, who was mysteriously on the very battlement from which the dead man fell, and who is, it appears, the dead man's heir. A position not without its delicacy.
Ah, the American lassie didn't do it. The lassie's real nice.
So you think, Inspector, that it's Lindsay or nothing?
An old feud, a witness that he was in a blazing passion, him and the girl gone. One could hardly ask for more.
Unless, perhaps, the chopping of the fingers from the corpse.
You heard that?
Aye.
Never heed foolish click, Mr. Wedderburn. You and I are concerned with facts.
An appreciation of the facts, the lie of the land, is essential to the presentation of a good case, Miss Guthrie.
If you insist, Mr. Wedderburn. I must confess I've had just about enough of this place after the events of the past couple of days.
Bear with me, Miss Guthrie. Osler, Principles and Practice of Medicine. Muir's Textbook of Pathology. Study here, Ranald Guthrie certainly did. More medicine. Experimental radiology by Richard Flinders. Very strange. Where, I wonder, does the science of medicine come into the picture?
Well, it comes, for that matter, into the poem here. In medicine, the most practitioners, leeches, surgeonus et physicianus, themself radid may not supply, timor mortis conturbat me.
That's very interesting. And if I may remark, Miss Guthrie, you have considerable facility in Middle Scots. You studied it at college?
Why, yes, I did.
May I ask, then, if you've taken your Ph.D.?
Yes, Mr. Wedderburn, I have.
Then you're quite sure that you are not the doctor for whom Hardcastle was on the lookout?
What an extraordinary piece of ingenuity. Of course I'm not. He knew nothing about me. And one doesn't arrange to be called doctor all one's days just because of a roaring piece of pedantry in youth.
Yes, I suppose not. Let us search further, Miss Guthrie. Noel Gilby has been so struck by what he calls your executive ability, he's missed the romanticism of your underlying motive.
And then, Mr. Wedderburn, what?
I'm wondering whether this romanticism has not made you manipulate a little what you witnessed in this tower.
You mean that Ranald Guthrie didn't commit suicide, after all?
On the contrary, I'm convinced he committed suicide. I think you liked Miss Mathers.
I did.
And this young Mr. Lindsay, from what you saw of him?
I thought him quite beautiful, Mr. Wedderburn.
What's fundamentally important is what took place between Guthrie and Lindsay. And that's where you've actually lied. You say Lindsay left quietly. Noel Gilby says he left in a blazing passion. He's right. Now, let me assure you of this. Neil Lindsay's safe.
Is safe?
I have a picture of the case no prosecution could break through. Guthrie committed suicide. Lindsay needs your protection no more. What he needs is your simple story of what happened in this room. Please, give it to me.
I couldn't be certain Neil hadn't slipped back and through the bedroom to the battlements for the necessary half-minute, but I knew he hadn't. I knew. Everything I've said about that interview was true, except right at the end. It went with formal civility. They moved towards the door. I thought they would shake hands, and then something went wrong. Guthrie turned on the boy and was lashing him with words. He had some hold on him, some hold that made it safe to be briefly and hideously cruel. It was over in a few seconds. Lindsay was gone.
My dear young lady, you must have no apprehensions, but come downstairs and repeat your story to Inspector Spate. He's speaking with Mr. Gilby, I believe.
Inspector, Miss Guthrie is now ready to give her statement. You will find it revealing.
Is that so, Mr. Wedderburn? There's a message up from Kincaid I thought you'd like to have. They found Lindsay and the young lady at Liverpool. The two are on the road back now, with Mr. Appleby of Scotland Yard.
Are they married?
No, miss, not yet.
Appleby, eh? Big shot. Mr. Gilby, a warrant, if you please. Would you be so good as to show me the gallery? Surely.
There's a disconcerting number of dead Guthries on these walls, Mr. Gilby. Mr. Gilby, you have some idea of what the police have in mind about this affair?
Hanging the elusive Lindsay.
Quite so. Now, let's glance at Spate's case. Lindsay kills Guthrie and runs off with his niece. An old feud, a new quarrel. What do you think of that?
It's lurid and it's crazy. Christine wouldn't fall for a chap like that, and... Well, we have an embarras de richesse.
Do go on.
Well, it's too much villainy about. In Hardcastle, and Guthrie too. My idea, rather, is that Guthrie was up to something.
Yes, I agree. Now, if Lindsay could be shown to have paused in mid-flight to chop a few fingers off the corpse...
A madman's dream.
Exactly, a madman's dream. And your first impression of Ranald Guthrie was that he was mad.
Yes.
Oh, it's a most horrid picture. But this is it. Ranald Guthrie committed suicide, and in the same instant committed an abominable crime. He would not let Lindsay have his niece, a fact of pathological intensity. He plotted to prevent the thing by Lindsay's death and his own.
Good God. You can see why he chanted Dunbar's poem.
There was to be a crime and a witness. Yes, there was to be the best sort of witness, a medical witness.
Hardcastle's doctor.
He failed to show up. You and Miss Guthrie turned up instead. Guthrie decided that you would serve. And now, the plan. Lindsay was to come on Christmas Eve and take Miss Mathers quietly and secretly away. Lindsay was to be brought up to the tower for a final interview, and at a set moment he was to be dismissed, and dismissed in a particular mood.
Mr. Wedderburn, the man was a thief.
You scarcely exaggerate. And you see what actually happened. Summoned at a very precise time by Hardcastle, who was undoubtedly in Guthrie's pay. You came up the tower staircase just in time to meet a very angry young man coming down. Hardcastle made a noticeably ineffective attempt to stop him. Lindsay succeeded in getting downstairs and, together with Miss Mathers, shook the dust of Erskine from his feet, suspecting nothing. No sooner was Lindsay through the study door than Guthrie dashed through the little bedroom and over the battlements to his death.
What for would it not work?
Yes, it very nearly didn't. Guthrie's nerve failed him at the last moment. He was unable to lop himself off a finger or two before he fell. Hardcastle, faithful no doubt to his instructions, spread the rumour nonetheless, further to implicate Lindsay.
Mr. Wedderburn, I most frightfully admire your unruffled calm. Guthrie must have been horribly and obscenely mad.
No. On all this there is nothing that is not logical and clear-headed. Strictly he was sane, wicked and fantastic. There's only fragmentary evidence for real craziness, and they were nearly his downfall. I refer, of course, to your learned rats.
Sorry?
Well, his timing. It had to be near perfect. You had to be on the stair as Lindsay was coming down, to summon you by means of learned rats. A fantasy before he settled on his perfectly rational plan.
So that's the story.
Sir.
Lindsay's in the clear, Constable.
Never your leave, sir. It's the coarse creature Hardcastle.
He's bolted?
No, sir, but he's drinking like a fish.
Oh, is that all?
But, sir, you don't understand, and I don't know what to do. The daft crater's drinking water. The Gomerel chill's down by that cattle trough in the back court.
He took the poison for his porridge. What was the rotten nature lured him to it?
We did what we could, but it was plain that Hardcastle had gone to his account. I suppose he'd been drinking in verity. He could hardly otherwise have mistaken a rat-poisoned mess of meal for his dinner. It was a dreich wait then until the arrival of the motor hearse to take Guthrie's body to Kincaig. Gilby and I then had work enough until it was time to return to the village and the sheriff's inquiry. It will be sufficient to say that I carried all before me. The madman's dream was over, both Guthrie and his accomplice Hardcastle dead, and the scheme exposed. Guthrie did not mean for Christine to write that last letter to her beloved Uncle Ewan. What he meant was that, hard upon Lindsay's descending in a passion, Guthrie's body should be found at the bottom, and Lindsay should, in Aeneas's phrase, swing for it.
Wedders, you were marvellous. Wonderful show. I fear it all must have gone over your head, Mr. Appleby. I say, Sybil, pass the chutney, would you please?
I took the opportunity this morning of familiarizing myself with the facts. I must congratulate you, Mr. Wedderburn, on your most original interpretation of them. Highly convincing.
Oh, my dear Mr. Appleby, it was my good fortune to listen patiently to the gossip of the hostess of this inn.
Indeed?
The fantastic rumour about the mutilating of the corpse. Rumour to be damaging must be true. I noted the fact of Hardcastle's curiosity about the body, and that he spread the rumour that Lindsay had mischieved Guthrie, that he'd chopped the fingers from the corpse, Mr. Appleby, after the old feud. There was no such wound. Why, then, the rumour?
I says a piping curry. Christine said a queer thing. She said, I can't believe it. My uncle had a finer mind than that.
But he was capable of being more ingenious. Oh, bless my soul.
And she said he would pit extremes only against extremes.
Mr. Appleby, as a police officer, you must have seen many people distressed by dreadful events. How do people's minds behave when they've been through a horrid thing like this?
I think, Miss Guthrie, she will brood as long as she feels she hasn't got the truth. A glass of water, Mr. Wedderburn.
Mr. Appleby, will you be so good as to explain the statement you've just made?
There are too many pieces. Miss Mathers has herself one piece of information which has not been pooled. Who was with her in the schoolroom, and who emerged from it and slipped into the darkness before Gilby and Hardcastle went up the tower staircase.
I'd forgotten about that.
And who opened the trapdoor onto the battlements, passed through it, and bolted it on the lower side.
Mr. Appleby, this is the slaughter of the innocents.
I think, therefore, there is truth yet to come. You agree, Miss Guthrie?
If you find real evidence of another person in the tower, I agree there is truth yet to come. Mr. Appleby, come to Urkany.
And this is the crater made by the body, I don't doubt.
Yeah.
That was some impact. All those pieces of the puzzle. There's a missing piece we ought to find hereabouts. Could you give me the spade now, Mr. Gilby?
Here you are.
Thank you.
Now for the skull of Yorick.
Oh, it's a job we'd be better doing in daylight, but needs must. Prod about over there, if you would.
Yeah, right here.
Gilby, here. Hold the lantern.
Right.
There you are.
Hey. Oh, it's sharp. Oh, it'll make a nice present for Inspector Spate.
Oh, it wasn't Spate's fault it wasn't found. There was no real reason to suspect its existence till this afternoon. And, of course, it fell from that height deep into the snow. But it will please Wedderburn. A suitable finger-lopping instrument is a most desirable accessory to his case. He laid the Urkany mystery to rest this afternoon, and I wonder if it would be better not to agitate it anew. In times like this, I must summon the abstract principle of my profession.
Which is?
Justice, Mr. Gilby. The principle of justice. Come, let's join the others in the tower. Well, Mrs. Hardcastle's rat poison seems to have had the desired effect.
Yes, indeed.
Most of them were still very much alive when I was up here this morning.
Were you indeed, Mr. Appleby?
Yes. Mr. Guthrie was evidently a reader. Medicine. Flinders, Experimental Radiology. An interesting book, but an interesting flyleaf, Mr. Wedderburn, you noticed? Richard Flinders, Fellow of the Royal College of Surgeons, born in South Australia, February 1893. Died at... and it stops there.
Oh, I'm afraid I missed. Could it be connected with Guthrie's colonial days?
The ink is fresh. Is it Guthrie's hand?
No.
Born 1893. Now, can we learn anything from that?
Christine told me her uncle came home from Australia after his brother died. He inherited Urkany in 1894.
It doesn't fit. Good. Now, do Guthrie's recent purchases happen to include a medical directory?
Yes, Flinders. Oh, big gun indeed. Worked Adelaide, Sydney, a long spell in the States, short periods in London. Publications include radiology of the cardiac region, analysis of a case of long-term amnesia, radiology of the...
Mr. Appleby, is this really interesting?
Interesting? The distinguished Flinders is not merely a big gun, he's a prodigy.
A prodigy?
Definitely. Born South Australia in 1893. Now, if we accept that statement, we have to believe he graduated in medicine at the age of 7.
Oh, this is nonsense.
On the contrary. It is the first glimpse of the truth. And now, we'd better aim at the truth all round. Miss Guthrie, I think these developments take you somewhat out of your depth.
They do indeed.
Then listen. I give you the same promise about Lindsay that Mr. Wedderburn gave. He is out of it. So now, let me ask you the question Mr. Gilby asked. However did you know Guthrie had committed suicide?
I didn't. In fact, I saw him sent over the parapet.
Yes. I think we might usefully go down to the gallery. What for would it not work, man? What for would it not work? Shine your torch here, Miss Guthrie, please. And on this one. And this.
Uncanny, isn't it?
200 years separate these portraits, but it could be the same face looking down on us. Can you repeat the end of Dunbar's poem?
Send for the deed, remede is none. best is that we for deed dispone. After our deed that live may we timor mortis conturbat me.
Ranald Guthrie had a pretty art in turning medieval piety or irony. Death threatens, best so to arrange it that one continues to live. That was his reading of Dunbar. And, somewhere, Ranald Guthrie is alive now. It was his brother Ian, mysteriously vanished in the Australian bush, who became Richard Flinders, the Australian surgeon, significantly the author of A Study of a Case of Long-Term Amnesia, who died. Ranald's story we shall piece together. The full story of Ian we shall never know.
Another of my learned rats.
And another account settled.
Good Lord, look. A notebook.
Clamped in the dying creature's jaws was indeed a notebook. A notebook penned in desperation by Dr. Richard Flinders to ensure that the truth may one day be discovered. Dr. Flinders, who had throughout his adult life retained the name he was given in 1893 after being pulled barely alive from a bushfire. He became a brilliant doctor, but alone among his numerous studies of radiology was the paper entitled An Analysis of a Case of Long-Term Amnesia. The restoration of his memory, occasioned it would appear by his hearing the strains of a pipe band, prompted no action. That his brother had abandoned him to die in the bush brought more sympathy than a desire for vengeance. Upon retiring and making his way to a peaceful and secluded old age in California, Ian Guthrie first desired to fill the long blanks in his memory, before ending his days as Richard Flinders. He wrote to his brother Ranald, thereby allowing ample time for Ranald to devise his plan. So, Hardcastle's doctor arrived by night, reckoning without the tortured memory of the poor mad brother who abandoned him, and who, convinced his brother was coming to wreak terrible vengeance, overpowered and held him in the tower, and reduced him to tying desperate messages onto the legs of rats, until the young Lindsay came for his final interview. Lindsay dismissed, Guthrie pitched Flinders to his death.
Fratricide.
But why? What drove him? What was his motive in such devilry?
The shadow of the crime in Australia, the massive feelings of guilt crystallizing on it, resulting in a fearful certainty that Ian was coming for absolute vengeance, and must be outwitted and destroyed.
But I looked at him.
And, Noel, you said?
As if an artist had wiped the baser lines away?
Yes, and that was why he broke with such fury into this gallery, to see again the family portraits, so as to assure himself of the feasibility of the plan, once he knew that Ian Guthrie, Richard Flinders, was on his way. No, you were looking at a different man. Richard Flinders died as Ranald Guthrie, and Ranald Guthrie will live as Richard Flinders.
Oh, my America, my newfound land. Yes. He swatted up enough medicine to carry him through in the event of any unforeseen intrusion on his privacy by medical people. And he tried to rid himself of a dead giveaway, his pathological miserliness.
An impossible task. He may well serve caviar, but neglects to stop starving his dog.
Mr. Appleby, I can stand this no more. I want action. Where is Ranald Guthrie now?
A couple of nights ago he was in Kincaid.
The ghost.
He was Dr. Flinders en route for California.
And our next move?
Is to listen to Miss Guthrie, who may, at last, tell us the truth of what she saw.
Everything I said was true. Up to a point. Ranald and Lindsay were in the room. Ranald lashed Lindsay into a passion. Guthrie went out by the bedroom door and Lindsay by the staircase door. And then, I'm afraid the lying begins. Rather by omission. Because I heard something. A cry or a shout. I thought the two had somehow got out onto the battlements and were quarreling there. The place was fearfully dangerous, and I suddenly felt it was all a stupidity I wasn't going to stand for. Castle Erkany craziness. I'd had enough. So I groped my way along the parapet to tell them to stop it.
I say.
I got round the corner, and there was certainly something going on. It was a confused vision, but I saw Ranald Guthrie's face. His arm rose into the lantern light, and I saw he was holding an axe. Then I think he stooped down. I was aware of a confused movement. A moment later, I saw him again, reared up against the parapet. He staggered and gave a great cry and went clean over the parapet. That's all. I saw nothing more. What I was sure I had seen was Lindsay kill Ranald Guthrie, perhaps in some sort of defense against that axe, under extreme provocation.
So you took him under your protective wing?
I am not like you, Mr. Appleby, sworn to certain accepted canons of justice. My private morality says a Neil Lindsay oughtn't to be hanged for killing a degenerate nuisance like Ranald Guthrie under outrageous provocation. And why Lindsay?
Miss Guthrie, was not Ranald just the sort of hospital case that, say, Lindsay, granted a certain pressure at one critical point in life or other, might have become?
I would have done the same.
I must admit I couldn't understand why it didn't just come clean at the inquest, though. Somehow I couldn't bring myself to shake his hand. Now I know. And now I know we must bring Ranald Guthrie to justice.
We'll get him. Ranald Guthrie's played his last trick.
Now I wonder who that is.
Oh, Minister, come in.
Mr. Wedderburn.
Mr. Appleby, have you met Mr. Jerby?
At the funeral.
Inspector.
Minister?
You have news?
The strangest news, Minister. Ranald Guthrie is alive.
Alive? Then I suppose I saw no ghost.
You saw the ghost?
What else is the minister for, idle havering old fool that he is, than to hold with such daftness and bogle talk? But can we have your strange story first? So it's fratricide, and somewhere Ranald Guthrie is alive now.
The ice on the loch is cracking.
Ranald Guthrie had long since given himself to the devil, and the devil gave him the devil's own gift in return. Pride.
No doubt.
Mr. Appleby, you wonder if in all the complex of motives you have discovered, the master motive is avarice. I think the master motive is pride. Pride made him take a tortuous and diabolical path. He forbade the marriage of Christine and Lindsay. It could not be, but pride forbade him give the reason. Neil and Christine are brother and sister. This is what I am here to tell you.
No, Minister.
Half-brother and half-sister. Christine is the daughter of Guthrie's own sister, Alison Guthrie, an eccentric and solitary woman. She died in some lonely place at the child's birth. The father was Wat Lindsay, already a married man with a son.
It doesn't matter. All he had to do was explain as soon as he knew of their attachment.
He could not speak. Shame, fear, pride.
Is it certain?
Yes. There are a couple of letters. I must find strength for the duty that is laid upon me tomorrow.
But if we left it alone, Ranald gone, no one knows.
Ranald would divulge it on his deathbed. It would be his only triumph.
Find him, strike a deal, silence for silence.
No.
Many people must marry unwittingly.
No.
It's them.
It must be tonight.
Oh, to anyone try to cross the ice. The next man will go in. Is you and Bell not here?
You expected him?
We were to meet him for explanations. Private explanations.
We don't know what they are, but there's a secret on every face in this room. What is it?
Sit down, both of you.
What is it?
The first news is this. Ranald Guthrie is not dead.
What?
His plot against you, Mr. Lindsay, stands. Only he killed not himself, but his elder brother, a doctor recently returned from Australia.
Guthrie, alive?
Just a moment. Another visitor in sight, and taking the same route.
It must be you and Bell. Oh, he mustn't take the ice. Neil, call to him. Warn him.
Go back. My God, it's not Bell. It's Guthrie.
Uncle Ranald?
He must think the castle's deserted. Oh, we've got him! We've got him!
Back, man, back! Sin! I'll get through!
Quickly! But wait, Lindsay! Wait for the rope! No, Lindsay!
You've wasted death before then! I'll go another than a man on the ice! Get her off the course as quickly as you can! Guthrie, can you hold on, man? I'm coming!
Neil, it's not safe. Come back! Neil!
All the rope there is, and it's not good.
Hold on, Guthrie, and you'll be as right as rain!
There's nothing for it.
I must take out the rope. I'm coming with the rope, Lindsay!
I've got him! Let me have the rope from as far away as you can manage. Got it! Get back and pull gently when I say.
Righto, everyone. The rope.
Heave away! It moved! Heave out! Hold it steady! Oh, again if you can!
Lindsay!
Neil! Neil! Mr. Appleby? Oh, good. You gave yourself a nasty bang on the head.
Mr. Bell, what?
Mr. Gilby fetched you out.
Lindsay?
I'm afraid there's no hope. He's drowned.
Miss Mathers?
The others have taken her back to the house. Well, at least now she need not be told until some proper time.
Ranald Guthrie. Lindsay got him out. You reckon without him? Mr. Bell, where is he?
The man you mean is here. He's coming round. Before he does, take a look at his hand. There.
The fingers?
Amputated long ago. Unchancy stuff, radiation. This is Ian Guthrie. Ronald is dead.
Dead? Are you sure?
Certain.
It was 18 months and harvest time before business again found me in Dunwinnie. I took the opportunity to travel up the glen to the village of Kincaig.
Mr. Wedderburn, Mr. Wedder, come away.
Mr. Bell, how are you?
But a cobbler grown old at his last. Sit down, sit down. Oh, it's right pleased to see you.
Growing old he may have been, but Mr. Ewan Bell expressed a desire to walk with me up the glen to Erchanny to see the castle, perhaps for the last time. First, though, he was good enough to show me 2 letters, the very postmarks of which he assured me had caused a minor commotion in the post office. The first was from Christine Mathers in Ohio, where she was living with Sybil Guthrie, who, in the fullness of time, had told that poor young lady the whole truth. The other bore a Californian postmark. It was from Dr. Richard Flinders.
John Appleby, a gentleman I suspect ill accustomed to being wrong, would have it that the case defeated him, Mr. Bell. He neglected, he says, the single element that changed its whole composition. There was one question, he insists, he forgot to ask.
But he did ask it, that clever London man. I would have asked it again were it not for the speech things happened with. Who was it slipped out of the schoolroom in front of Hardcastle and the lad Gilby when they were on their way to the tower?
Forgive me, Mr. Bell, but you're not in the first flower of youth, a journey not without its perils.
I don't know how I got up to Erchanny that night. You'll have mind of the strange letter the Dafty brought me from Christine.
Yes.
Old man and slow that I am, it was Christmas Eve before I saw that at the heart of it, unknown even to Christine herself perhaps, was an appeal. An appeal which set me on the road to Erchanny, dangerous and daft though it may have been. It wanted just half an hour to midnight, when Christine let me in through the schoolroom window. That I chose the window, not the door, shows how strong was my instinct that Guthrie was an enemy. Christine was waiting there with a little case and coat. Surely you're not going tonight, I asked. It's Uncle's way, she said. The lass was too much in love, I suppose, to allow herself more than a troubled suspicion that it must all be wrong, that there was something sinister and crazy at the core of it. I said, I'll just be going up to see them, Christine, and when your Neil comes down, away with you, and write to me someday. Then I kissed her. She said, Go by the little stair and you're more likely to avoid Hardcastle. So it was then Gilby and Hardcastle caught a glimpse of me, slipping from the schoolroom. It was up the little tower stair before that fit young man made it halfway up the big one. All I had in mind to do was to come in on the interview and declare myself a friend of Lindsay's who wanted to see him safely away with his bride. I came out through the trapdoor onto the parapet. I was on the other side from the study window and the American lady, though I never knew she was there at the time. The cry that brought Miss Guthrie away from her window was mine. I don't doubt it was loud enough, for as I was going cautiously along the battlement, my lantern at my feet, something rolled out of the darkness that almost took me up and sent me over the edge. I put down my lantern and stooped over it. It was a human body.
Who's that?
I straightened up from the huddled form, sore afraid. It was Neil Lindsay.
Who's that?
Guthrie rose up by the parapet, full in the light. I was in mortal danger. His axe was swung back low, a rising stroke that would either gut me or cleave me from the chin up. I'd take it in first, and I did. So much, Mr. Wedderburn, for the death of Ronald Guthrie. It sits heavy with me.
Bless my soul. Bless my soul.
It's a fine carry-on for an elder of the kirk. I knelt down with the figure in the snow and whispered, "Man, Lindsay, are you all right?" You may take it I was fair scunnered to find myself looking at a Guthrie. My first dark thought was that I'd killed the wrong man. He was drugged, I think, but had just wits enough to tell me who he was. Ian Guthrie. I told him my own name, and his eyes lit up. So it's now 50 years since we sat under the same dominie. I carried him down the wee stair.
You
I've carried a cap that was heavier often enough on my father's croft. Through the trapdoor and away to scare the folk of Kincaid as a ghost.
And yet he returned. The dreadful accident with the ice.
I asked him to. He wanted to go secretly away. I just got a bit common sense through the dark Guthrie passion. 50 years as Richard Flinders wouldn't rid him of that rank eccentricity. I thought we'd a duty to explain ourselves to Christine and the poor Chiel Lindsay. I engineered a meeting, but I wasn't expecting the policeman to be there with yourselves. Right fortunate it was that he proved to be a wise man, that Mr. Appleby, knowing where to let be. Ranald Guthrie and the coarse creature Hardcastle were both dead. Ian Guthrie, a childless man whose attitude to the estate was his own affair. Silence for a time on the whole story was a mercy to Christine Mathers.
There it is. Castle Erskine. You know, I gather from the Edinburgh papers that it's to let.
But I doubt its only tenants hereafter will be the rats. Aye, the Guthries are gone from these lands, the castle is to let, and all their goods dispersed. The portraits were sent out to Christine. I bought the books myself. They come in handy when I have conversations with the minister. He took the old Flemish table for the session house. Stone will fall from stone, and that high tower I climbed will be forgotten.
I that in hill was and gladness am troubled now wi' great sickness and feeblet wi' infirmity. Timor mortis conturbat me. Your pleasance here is all vain glory. This false world is but transitory. The flesh is bruckle, the fiend is slee. Timor mortis conturbat me.
In Lament for a Macker by Michael Innes, Aljo Wedderburn was played by John Shedden, Ranald Guthrie, David McHale, Christine Mathers, Anne Lacey, Ewan Bell, Callum Mill, Inspector Appleby and Mr. Roberts, Michael Mackenzie. Noel Gilby, Ernest Blake, Sybil Guthrie, Gerda Stevenson. Hardcastle, Martin Black. Mrs. Hardcastle, Edith MacArthur. Neil Lindsay, Benny Young, and Isa Murdoch, Victoria Davidson. Miss Strachan, Mrs. Roberts, and the wee boy were played by Gwyneth Guthrie. Clem Clackett, the minister and the constable, by Brown Darby, and Inspector Spate and Tamas by Robert Patterson. Lament for a Macker was dramatised for radio by Kathleen Jamie and directed in our Glasgow studios by Patrick Rayner.
Counsel for the Defence, a radio adaptation by Felix Felton of Geoffrey Ashford's novel. George Clover, a vicious gangster, has been arrested along with some of his gang and charged with bank robbery. Their trial is about to begin. Clover tries to get David Adams, an extremely capable attorney, to act as his counsel for defense, but Adams refuses. However, Clover is not the man to take no for an answer, so he has Adams' daughter kidnapped to force Adams to represent him.
We present James Kenny, William Edel, and Carlton Hobbs in Counsel for the Defense, a new play for radio dramatized by Felix Felton from the novel by Geoffrey Ashford. The action begins in a country town not far from London, where on the corner of the High Street is the main branch of a bank. Inside this afternoon are a nearby greengrocer, 2 ladies, and an elderly man.
£5, please. In one. Yes, please.
The way they keep you waiting.
It's that old man who had the bag. Come for some firm's wages or something.
Why don't they keep one cashier for the private customers?
Oh, don't fret, Marion. We're next.
£14,400 in notes and £25 4 shillings in silver. There you are, Mr. Brain.
Thank you, Mr. Conan.
It's a bit heavy, I'm afraid.
Oh, I can manage.
Oh, here, hang on, Mr. Brain. You haven't locked it.
Oh, dear me, I must be dreaming.
See that, Marion? He didn't even lock it. Why don't they use younger men?
Why don't they send the money anyway?
The car's waiting for you outside, I hope, Mr. Brain.
Just around the corner. They can't park in the High Street.
Now, you got the chain on all right?
Yes, thank you. See you next week, Mr. Conan.
It's good afternoon. Now, ladies.
£5, please.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Marion, that old man. I don't think he's well. He's stopped at the door.
Come on, Edith. Let's see he gets to his car.
Yes, of course.
Help! Help! We're being robbed! Help!
Marion, look! Someone's trying to snatch that poor old man's money.
Oh, thank heavens. Here's a police car right on the spot for once. Let's go over.
No, there may be shooting.
Don't be silly. There's one of the police from the car. Oh, my word, he was quick. He's got the thief already. Come on.
All right, you. We saw the whole thing. Put him in the car, boys.
Come on. With us.
You all right, sir?
Yes, thank you, officer. The bag was on a chain. Oh, thank heavens you were there.
I'm afraid we'll have to ask you to come along with us just for a few minutes or so. Then we'll drive you wherever you were going.
Oh, thank you.
Perhaps you'd get in the back, sir?
Yeah.
Priestley here.
Inspector, a police car's been found abandoned.
A police car? Abandoned?
Yes, sir. In Lovers Woods, south of the river.
Where are the men?
I don't know, sir. There's an old man in the car, unconscious, badly beaten up, and 3 police uniforms.
Lay me on a car at once. I'd better get down there.
Yes, sir.
What's the verdict, Doc?
Oh, hello, Inspector. Alive, but only just. Head injury severe and obviously the result of a severe coshing. Whether he survives or not is in the hands of the gods. Do we know who he is?
Well, there's not much doubt he's William Brain.
Married?
I think so.
Better warn the wife. Prepare for the worst.
Okay.
How are things going, Sergeant?
No fingerprints inside, Inspector. I'll give the car a more thorough going over when I get it back.
Anything besides the uniforms?
A dirty handkerchief and a rough cloth glove.
Mm-hmm. Get them all down to the lab. We'll see if they can make anything of them. And Garrett, you look after the car. I'd better get back and report to the superintendent.
Come in, Bill.
You've heard about it, sir?
Yes. And I've got news for you. They found our 3 men.
Oh, where?
Down at the old laundry, the one that was burnt out. There was a phony call saying 2 men had been seen there fighting with knives. Our boys went and were beaten up. They were found in their underclothes, bound, gagged, coshed, and covered with blood.
How are they?
Pretty bad. Ticket especially. Bill, this is a mess.
You can say that again.
It was a clever bit of planning, which doesn't help us any. One of them appeared to try to commit the robbery. Then the other 3, dressed as policemen, turned up to catch the thief red-handed. People watching thought the whole thing was under control and didn't report anything to anyone. It beats me.
Yes.
Why was the driver of the firm's car parked around the corner instead of where he ought to have been?
It's no parking in front of the bank.
Whoever heard of a motorist taking any notice of a little thing like that? Press have got the story, I suppose.
You bet they have.
We come out of it as real Charlies, don't we? We fall for a false alarm, 3 of our men are knocked out, and then to crown it all, their uniforms are used to carry out our robbery of 15,000 quid. Bill, we've got to turn the heat on.
The police must have pretty red faces down in somewhere or other.
Oh? Why?
Well, some thugs knocked out 3 of them, borrowed the uniforms, and cleaned up 15,000 from a bank.
Oh, read it, Daddy.
No, Jane, there's no time. You must get off to school. It's 20 past.
I expect there's another bus strike on.
There wasn't 5 minutes ago when I went outside for the milk.
Oh, all right, then.
I wish you didn't hate that school so.
I wish we could afford to send it to a better one. Still, if you will marry an impoverished young barrister who has to sit around in chambers all day waiting for someone to employ him...
Oh, don't be silly.
Now, I get so tired of sitting there, thanking old Doyle for cups of tea and watching the others do their crosswords.
Do stop worrying. You see, very soon you'll have so much work you wish you'd been left alone.
I hope you're right.
Tell me about this robbery, David.
Usual thing. Wage snatch. But the police take a pretty poor view when their own people are beaten up. They may look a slow lot, but believe me, when they're really onto something, they grind exceeding small.
Well, Bill, how's it going?
I think we're beginning to get somewhere, sir.
About time, too. Did you see the leader in the local paper?
I certainly did.
What's come up, then?
The forensic science people have been through about that handkerchief. There's a laundry mark, and the laundry say it was sent by someone of the name of Younger in Risdon Crescent. Garrett's gone round there now.
Yes, sir. Tell Sergeant Garrett to come straight in here when he gets back, will you?
Yes, sir.
Anything else?
Yes. That lump of mud that was found in the car. We've had the lab breakdown on that. Horse dung, chicken dung, peat moss, and 40-cent clay.
Well?
Old John says there's a belt of this particular clay south of the river, and the peat moss and the dung are what keen gardeners give it to lighten it.
Well, it's a line. What gets my goat is that Ticket and Co. can't help us more.
Well, they only saw the men who attacked them for a moment before they were coshed. And they were wearing nylon stockings over their faces.
They don't seem to have put up much of a fight.
Well, they didn't have a chance. They were not groggy before they knew what was what.
They ought to have had their wits about them from the beginning.
Easy to say that now, sir.
You're not suggesting, Bill, that I compliment them and give them a signed certificate, are you?
No, sir.
Come in.
Instructions to come straight up, sir.
Shut the door, Garrett, and tell me what you found out.
I saw the wife, sir, Mrs. Younger. The husband was out on duty. He's a bus driver. I showed her the handkerchief. She says it's her husband's, but she knows he was on his bus that afternoon. I have to check that with the bus station.
Why was the handkerchief out of his possession, then?
Well, she thinks one of the lodgers may have taken it.
Lodgers?
Yes, she always has 2 or 3, and she says she doesn't check the handkerchiefs properly, or she'd have missed it before. So I asked her if she ever suspected any of the lodgers of stealing things. She hummed and hawed a bit, and then said that there was one she'd had her eye on, though she'd never caught him up to anything. He's not there anymore, and she couldn't remember his name till we looked at her guest book. It was Clover. George Clover. I've got the whole list here.
Have them checking records. This chap Clover and all the other. Here. Wait a minute. George Clover. That rings a bell. A man of that name went down not so long ago for armed robbery. I remember the case well. Knocked a tradesman over the head who was taking the week's cash to the bank. He ought to have landed 5 years, but the judge went soft in the head and only gave him 18 months. Clover. It's a bit of a long shot, but something tells me it's not too long.
I'll get onto records at once, sir.
Get the file photograph, find out where he is and what he's doing.
I think they're getting warm, sir.
Oh?
Clover works for old Pointer, the market gardener on the south side of the river. I've been down there. He confirms that his soil is that particular clay and that he feeds it with dung and peat moss. And also that Clover took the day off on the 17th.
Ah, now we're getting somewhere.
We've got further than that, sir. Wright had a hunch that someone might have been down by the river when they dumped the police car with Brain inside it. He's been talking to everybody who takes regular walks.
Any luck?
Not till today. But now he's found an elderly lady, Miss Weston, exercising her dog. She remembers seeing 2 cars there, a black one and a red one. She saw 3 men walk from the black one to the red one and drive off.
Which way did the red car go?
Towards Woodhorn.
Did you get the number?
No.
Ah.
But she's absolutely certain it was a Radley, the first model after the introduction of the overhead valve engine.
How the devil did she know that?
Her father was mad about cars and brought her up to be.
Well, thank God for fathers.
Yes, sir. It's beginning to look all right, isn't it, sir?
Not bad. What about the others?
Clover's got 2 cronies called Enton and Green. Can't get a line on a 4th man, though. Given a bit more spade work, I think we'll haul in the 3.
Hello, Wright. Just been hearing about your towpath lady.
We've had another break, sir.
Such as what?
You know we've had to go at the car hire firms. There's one in Jordan Street which let out a red Radley on the evening of the 16th, which was returned on the 18th. The manager identified Clover out of a dozen photos.
With no hesitation?
None whatsoever.
And the model?
Mark 8, sir. The first of the overhead valve jobs.
Well done, boys. That's it.
Mr. Casgo is here to see you, Mr. Adams.
No, thank you, Doyle.
Shall I show him in, sir?
Yes, I'm always pleased to see a solicitor. And try and take that pained look off your face.
I hope my expression is completely non-committal, sir.
On the contrary, it leaves little doubt of your opinion of Mr. Casgo.
The gentleman in question is, I will admit, sir, not the kind of gentleman I should choose to do business with if there were any choice in the matter.
The man's offering me a brief.
There are times, sir, when I fear that commercialism has spread even to the bar. Excuse me, sir. Mr. Adams will see you now, sir.
Oh, thank you.
Mr. Casgo.
Good morning. Do come in.
Oh, morning to you, Mr. Adams. Not a bad one either.
Have a chair. And what about some tea?
Oh, always ready for a cuppa. You could plant me in the middle of my own grave and I'll be ready for a cuppa.
Thank you, Doyle. Cigarette?
Oh, thanks. Don't mind if I do. We've all got to die sometime, that's what I say. Read the papers in this case, I suppose.
Yes, I have.
What's the verdict?
Well, the police evidence is pretty conclusive, even if it is largely circumstantial. They might have stood a chance before the 3 of them talked to the police, but now...
Just how I feel. When I saw Clover, I said, lad, why didn't you keep your large mouth shut? Don't you know that 90% of you boys talk yourself into prison? If he goes down, he can't blame anybody but himself. And I wouldn't be betting on anything this side of 10 years.
Nor would I.
I said to Clover, I said, look at the evidence you left lying around. While you were a baddie, why didn't you invite the boys in blue along to watch you?
Have the accused been able to help at all?
We didn't do it, they sing. I said to them, right, you didn't do it. Now give me some proof of that. Proof, Clover says? What kind of proof? Proof you didn't do it, I yell at him. I almost broke down and wept. Oh, blimey, it's hot in here. Do you mind if I take my coat off?
By all means.
Oh.
Both milk and sugar are present, sir.
Oh.
Sugar, Mr. Casco?
As much as you like. Can't be too sweet for me. You got to die sometime.
Anything more, sir?
No, thank you, Doyle.
No. What's wrong with him?
Oh, nothing. What were you saying?
Where was I? Oh, yes, I said to these beauties, look, boys, you're in a tight spot and no mistake. Now, put your heads together and tell me how we're to go about proving you didn't do it.
Green looks at Enton. Enton looks at Clover. And Clover says, but ain't that your job?
Did he indeed?
He did, as true as I'm sitting here. Now, what do you do with men like that? Well, have you any bright ideas? I haven't. But then I never do. I'm not clever. My father said to me, Reg, me boy, you haven't enough brains to be really dishonest. You better become a solicitor. I always thought the world of my father, so I took his advice. Whenever I want something clever done, I come running to one of you chaps. And here I am.
Yes. I'm afraid they're for it if they don't produce a story that holds water.
I begged them with tears in my eyes to tell them the truth. The kind of truth that would help us, that is. Did they? Not them. Born stupid.
I'd better see them, I suppose.
See Clover. That's why I've come to you. He's a nice lad, really, when you get to know him. Come up and have a conference with him, and perhaps you'll get some ideas. Of course, you can talk to the other two if you want to, but you'll only end up by wanting to knock their heads together. I'll fix it up with your clerk, shall I? I'll meet you at the station and take you to the prison.
Are you Mr. Adams?
I am.
My name is Junter, sir, Mr. Casco's chief clerk.
Oh, isn't he turning up?
He's suffering from a slight cold, and for fear it might turn to bronchial pneumonia, has retired to bed, sir.
Sorry to hear it.
Shall we proceed to the prison? The taxis are this way.
Good morning, Mr. Clover. I want to ask you some questions.
Got a fact?
Yes.
Match.
Now, Mr. Clover, to begin with, let's face up to one thing. Matters haven't been made any easier by the statements you, Enton, and Green have made to the police.
Well, the bogies made us talk.
Oh? How?
I kept asking questions. I don't go for questions. They make me mad.
Did they make any promises or threats?
Threaten me? Don't make me laugh.
Then why did you feel compelled to make any statement?
I just told you.
You'd have stood a much better chance if you'd remained silent.
I tell you, I couldn't. Questions all the time. I want to stuff them down their throats with my bare hands.
Yes. Well, you can't deny you obtained a car on the 16th from a firm in Jordan Street called Hire a Car, can you?
No.
Was it a red Radley?
Yeah.
And on the 17th, did you and Harry Enton, in fact, drive away from the house in which you were lodging at about 1 o'clock?
Yeah.
You told the police you dropped Enton when you reached the old bridge, and that you didn't see him again until you were on your way back from a pleasure drive. That you then met both Enton and Green, picked them up, and all three of you returned to your house where you were seen to embark at 16 minutes past 3.
Yeah.
Well, that sort of statement is going to play hell with the jury unless you fill it out. They want to know why you went on the drive, where you went, and how it happened that you met Enton and Green on your return, and so on.
Now, you tell me what's best.
I can only use the material you give me.
Lie off that. You tell me what's best to say.
Clover, any evidence brought out by me at the trial can only be evidence as given by you.
Stop giving me that stuff. You know why you've been hired? To get me off. I'm ready to pay for that.
Look, will you please listen?
Listen. You listen to me. Casco said your price was high. I told him that was square with me if you did what you was being paid for. Now do it.
I feel it's time to point out that I am not a sack of potatoes.
Yeah, get wise to yourself, go. You reckon we waste good bees and honey on a slump like you for nothing? Good boys and tell them so as they could put on the Palsy Act and try to see we don't spend too much time inside. Yeah, I told them nuts. I ain't allowed to eat us, so they just said I was going down for a long stay instead. That's when I told Casco I wanted one of you curly locks. Hello? Going somewhere in a hurry?
I don't suppose you've ever heard of the rules of conduct of the bar.
Rules of which?
Ridiculous to ask. You don't know any rules at all. Let me try to explain something. Counsel are called upon to do two things in a criminal trial: prosecute and defend. When we defend, we are either representing a guilty or an innocent man. If the prisoner states unequivocally that he is guilty, counsel cannot defend him on a plea of not guilty, which he knows to be false. The most he can do is to carry out a plea in mitigation of sentence.
Your belly's full of wind.
Small, I doubt if anything I can say will have much effect. You injured 4 men, 3 of whom were policemen.
I'll not shed no tears for them.
If you wish to plead not guilty, you must get someone else to defend you.
You're my mouthpiece.
I have made the position clear.
Listen, I told Gascoigne I wanted you. For why? Because you're the tops. I got money, I'll pay for the best, like always.
I'm flattered, but hardly converted.
You got legs off.
Legs?
He was a Johnson.
Legs Johnson?
No, mug, Legs lived on women. He thought he was going down for a deuce, but you got him off. Legs said you was the tops.
That was a fluke. The indictment had been drawn up wrongly. It never got to court.
It don't make no difference, Go-Go. You're the boy for me.
Goodbye, Clover. Well, things seem more natural out here, don't you think so, Mr. Junter?
Natural?
Didn't you get the impression that Clover was a small packet of evil?
No, I didn't.
I'm sorry things have turned out like this. You'll explain to Mr. Casco why I've had to drop the case, won't you?
Yes.
Tell him I hope his cold soon gets better.
I will.
Well, I'll get back to the station. If I've got the times right, I can catch a fast train in half an hour.
That's so. Goodbye.
Hello.
Hello, darling. Oh, what sort of a day did you have?
Lousy.
Train not comfortable?
Ever trouble in one that was?
Well, you've certainly come back in a prickly mood.
I'm sorry.
Apology accepted. Come in and sit down and tell me why you've come back like a bear with a sore head.
Well, the case went sour on me.
Oh, no.
Afraid so. I saw this man, Clover, and if ever I've seen a nastier piece of work, I've forgotten the occasion. He thought you bought counsel by the yard.
He seems to have left an impression on you.
What I can't understand is why didn't Casco tell me?
And what about the others? Were they as bad?
I didn't see them. Casco insisted it was only worth speaking to Clover.
Do you think they did do the robbery?
Oh, yes. Clover boasted how clever they were.
Frank, anyway.
You've missed the point. Since he told me he did it, I can't defend him on a plea of not guilty.
What's it matter what he told you in private? You're not going to pass it on.
Knowing he's guilty, I'm not allowed to defend him.
So what happens?
I've chucked the case.
I see. How much has that lost us?
The brief hasn't been delivered yet.
I'm glad to hear you've started to do so well that you can afford to throw away money.
It's the principle of the thing.
You can't eat principles.
Do try to understand, Gwen. I can't disregard a rule if not I wanted to. Besides, you haven't seen Clover. There's something filthy about him.
More filthy than that man you defended who was living off the earnings of half a dozen prostitutes?
Oh.
There's Jane. Let her in, will you? I'll go and start supper.
Hello. How was school?
Horrible.
Oh, dear. Come in and tell me all about it. Oh, what's the trouble today?
Oh, same as usual. That awful food. And Miss Gould's got her corner again. Why isn't the radio on?
Because we didn't want it.
Oh, Daddy, you are funny.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, Doyle?
You haven't seen Mr. Farmer, have you, sir?
No, he hasn't been in chambers all morning.
Hello? It's Mrs. Adams, sir.
Thank you. Hello?
David, is that you?
Gwen, what's the matter?
Can you hear me, David? Something has happened to Jane.
What has?
I got a telephone call.
What telephone call?
I've just told you.
You haven't?
Can't you ever stop arguing?
Gwen, what has happened?
There was a telephone call. A man told me to get in touch with Jane's school to see how she was getting on. And that when I'd done it, I was to contact you and say you weren't to talk to anyone.
Have you spoken to the school?
She never arrived there this morning. They thought she must be ill.
Why didn't they check with you immediately?
I don't know. David, I'm frightened.
I'm coming back at once.
David,
Anything more?
nothing.
Well, sit down. Here, smoke this. What was the telephone message?
I told you.
Man or woman?
Man.
What kind of a voice? Educated, uneducated, pleasant, unpleasant?
He sounded a swine. Oh, what could have happened? David, who can it be?
Did he say he was going to ring again?
No. What are you going to do?
I don't know. How can I until I hear more?
You always want to wait. This is one time you've got to act right away.
What can we do until we know the facts? Talk sense. Hello?
Is that David Adams?
Yes?
Kept the news to yourself.
So far?
Glad to hear you're not moon-blind.
Who are you?
Come off it, Go-Go. I ain't answering that. I was born shy.
What's he saying?
Be quiet. I must listen to him.
Hey, Charlie. Gone for a walk round the block?
I'm here.
I've got your daughter. Nice kid, isn't she? Bit young, maybe, for a piece of joy, but some people prefer them that way. Me? I'm not particular. You've got that, haven't you?
Yes.
Now listen, Go-Go, here's the pitch. You get the boys free and your little girl comes back to you sweet as a daisy. You don't get the boys off and she won't never be the same.
Now, listen to me.
And another thing. That trial's due in a few days. See it don't get put off or the little girl will get her first lesson.
I can't control the day of the trial.
Don't you love your little daughter?
I tell you,
Mister, you get 'em off, that's all.
What is it?
The Clover case. He must be the fourth man. He's kidnapped Jane to force me to get the others off.
But you said nothing could save them.
Yes,
Then how can you get them off?
I can't.
Then, if it's impossible, how can they expect you to?
No one's taught them to be logical.
What's going to happen to Jane if they're found guilty?
Have you any imagination? Use it.
She's such a kid.
She's not kid enough.
You've got to get in touch with the police.
If the man thinks a police search has started, he's going to fix Jane. Besides, the police will want the trial postponed, and the man said that if it is, Jane will get her first working over. The police won't find her quickly enough to stop it.
You mean there's nothing we can do?
That's it.
You can't just sit there and calmly admit Jane's going to be...
I'm not calm.
Then do something.
What?
Dave, isn't there a chance you could get the men off?
No jury on earth could be stupid enough not to convict.
David, what are we going to do?
I'll see Clover.
Well, well, well. If it isn't the Curly Locks again. All the way from London.
Clover, I had to see you to try and explain that...
Let's have some smokes. Jump on a packet. A generous sort. I like you, Go-Go.
Will you please listen?
You and me, could become drinking pals. You'd work with that, wouldn't you?
Oh, please stop.
When I first saw you in this room, I said to myself, Georgie, he might be a bit toshy, but, I get to know him. He'll turn out nothing but friendly. You're the kind of person I like.
Clover, I want...
Tell you something, Daddy-O. People what don't know me and what I don't know what calls me Clover. Puffballs in blue calls me Clover. But you ain't the police. You're a friend come here today, ready and willing to be all friendly. You call me Georgie, same as all my other friends do.
I find Clover more natural.
I said call me Georgie. Tell me you got a little girl who's going to grow up into a nice hugging wish. She'd be happier if you and me was pals, wouldn't she?
Yes, George.
Ah, sounds better, doesn't it? Now, you tell me your friendly name.
David.
Hello, Tommy David. You and me wasn't as friendly as we might have been last time, was we, eh? Wasn't going to defend me and the others, was you? I guess you've come down today to apologize to me and say there ain't nothing you'd rather do than help me and the others. How's that for a guess?
Quite good.
Daddy, that really ain't the way to apologize for all them things you said about me. How about doing it proper?
I'm sorry if I said anything to upset you.
And now you're going to do everything you can to help me and the others.
Yes.
You made me happy, Gogo. I'll sleep better tonight. I'll be worrying myself inside, wondering what I'd done to annoy you. So long, then.
Don't go yet. I want to talk to you about Jane.
Jane?
My daughter.
Oh, no, I didn't know you had a daughter. I bet she's just my couple when she's all tidied up. I like some soft and with plenty to cuddle. What's she got to cuddle, David?
Shut up.
Oh, what have I said to make you angry? You're me's friends. I don't do nothing to my friends but try and make them happy.
Please, try and see reason. Look, I'm defending you, but that doesn't mean I can work miracles. I can't do better for you than my best. Using Jane as a hostage will only hinder me.
Seems to me at first you wasn't going to look after me and the boys.
Oh, yes, but that was because...
And now you're going to do all you can?
Yes.
Seems to me your little girl's made quite a difference already.
You've got what you wanted. I'm defending you, although I shouldn't. But I can't alter the evidence. I can't force the jury to vote as I want them. All I can do is try and influence them. And knowing what may be happening to Jane means I can't give up my best. I'm worrying myself sick. So let her go. I swear I'll do everything I can for you in court.
Of course you will. You and me's friends. Friends help each other.
Well, you see she's let go?
Me? I don't know what you're talking about.
I can't change the evidence. I can't change the evidence.
Just you defend us and get us off. Because then we can stay friends like we are now. Miss Senior, I'll tell the boys how nice and friendly you've been and now you'll be working on our side. So long, Daddy-o.
Well?
Hopeless. He wouldn't listen to a thing I said.
Oh. Suppose I go and see him, David.
I wouldn't let you near him.
Why not?
He's filth.
What does it matter what he is? It's Jane.
He was laughing at me all the time. He was enjoying every moment because he had me crawling to him.
I'd crawl around until I was dizzy if I thought it would help Jane. What makes you think you're more important than your own daughter?
You've got it all wrong.
I've got nothing wrong. Oh, David, I'm sorry. I just can't help it. Just leave me alone. Just leave me alone.
I drove away in a red Radley from the house where I was lodging, and Enton was with me, but I dropped him by the old bridge and went on for a ride. When I came back, I saw Enton and Tom Green.
Hudson is on the telephone, sir.
Now, what's worrying him?
He wants the papers in the Murdoch case, sir.
They aren't ready yet.
You've had them several days, sir, and when they first came, they were marked urgent.
I haven't had the time.
You haven't been all that busy, sir.
Tell them the work isn't done, and they'll be lucky if they get it this side of next year.
You'd better do the papers now, sir.
Look, I've had enough to do with this robbery case.
I'm even more surprised that you can find any work to do in that case, sir, than that you decided to handle it after all.
What I do is my own business.
Sometimes, sir, the good of the chambers is of some importance.
I did have a case with me, but it was empty, and I can't remember why I had it with me. With regard to the blood on my head, I cut myself with my own razor while I was shaving. Ooh.
Can't you stop? It's long after 12.
You go to sleep.
My mind won't let me.
Did you take those sleeping pills?
If I can't sleep without those things, I'd rather stay awake.
That's stupid.
No more stupid than going over and over those notes.
The case is tomorrow. Today, in fact. I've still got time to find some hint of false evidence.
David, what do you think now?
The same as before.
Will you have to call the prisoners?
I might be able to persuade the jury that there's no case to answer.
Then the stories they told the police won't come out.
Of course they will. The police will give them.
But then, how can you hope to win?
I can only hope to show they were so upset by the police that they didn't know what they were saying.
Why should they have been if they weren't guilty?
I don't need you to underline the difficulties.
How do you think they're treating her? I feel so hopeless it makes me choke. Oh, God.
I cut myself with my own razor when I was shaving, so somehow some of the blood must have got up there. I didn't go to work because it was such a fine day.
Yes, Mr. Pride?
Members of the jury, the case you have to try today is one that has, as you know, had a great deal of publicity. Before anything else, you must forget all that you have heard about it, all that you have read about it, and judge solely by what you hear in this court. Members of the jury, the Crown says that the men in the dock, together with one or more persons unknown, committed a robbery accompanied by a high degree of violence on the 17th of last month. At about 2 o'clock on that afternoon, Mr. William Brain, who acts as general messenger for a large engineering firm, went to the bank to collect the money for the weekly wages of the staff.
Hello, Adams. Oh, hello, Scott. How long is this lot going to take? 2 days, perhaps. As much as that? Well, it won't be less. You've got a job and a half if you hope to do any good for this bunch of thugs. Yes. I take it they've got previous records. Quite good ones. And old Leeming will send them down for a real stinger. The last time he was on circuit here, he dished out 10-year sentences as if there were so many months. Are you certain my case won't be heard till Tuesday?
Near positive.
Thanks.
This lady was walking with her dog along the river bank. On the outskirts of a small wood, known as Lover's Wood, she saw 2 cars, one of which she will identify as a red Radley. More than that, members of the jury, she will identify it as the Mark 8 model, the first to be fitted with an overhead valve engine. She saw 3 men walk towards the Radley and drive away in the direction of Woodhorn. Members of the jury, I will now call the evidence for the prosecution. Mr. Conan, please.
Mr. Conan, Mr. Conan, Mr. Conan.
Mr. Conan, are you a cashier at the bank on the corner of High Street and Queen Street?
I am.
Do you know Mr. William Brain?
Yes.
Did you see him on the 17th of last month?
Yes, he came to the bank and drew a large sum of money, as he does each Thursday.
Do you remember how much he drew on that occasion?
14,425 pounds, 4 shillings.
What happened?
He gave me the cheque. I packed the money into his case, like I always did, and then I gave it back to him.
What happened then?
He kept the chain to himself and left.
Thank you, Mr. Conan.
No questions.
Mr. Brain.
Mr. Brain, Mr. Brain, Mr. Brain, Mr. Brain, Mr. Brain.
Mr. Pride, your witness doesn't seem to be here.
My lord, the witness was well aware of the date and time of the trial. I am at a loss to account for his absence.
I take a serious view of this.
Of course, my lord.
I think you'd better proceed with your case, Mr. Pride. And when the witness turns up, we will inquire into the reasons why he was unable to be here on time.
Very well, my lord.
Mr. Pride, sir. What is it this time, Mr. Pride?
My lord, the constable has informed me that he understands from the wife of the missing witness that her husband has disappeared.
Disappeared?
Yes, my lord. It appears that he went out early yesterday evening and has not returned.
This is ridiculous. Will you take steps, Mr. Pride, to see that police inquiries are conducted with all possible speed?
Certainly, my lord.
Meanwhile, you had better continue with any of your witnesses that are available.
Yes, my lord. Dr. Mortimer.
Dr. Mortimer! Dr. Mortimer! Dr. Mortimer!
Dr. Mortimer, would you please describe Mr. Brain's condition when you were summoned to him?
He had severe cuts and bruising and was suffering from shock and concussion.
Were you able to form any ideas as to what sort of weapon might have caused such injuries?
I can say no more than a blunt instrument. Very probably some form of cosh.
Were the injuries extensive?
Not in area, but in their nature. By that, I mean it was clear that he had been hit over and over again.
Did this suggest anything to you?
The injuries were consistent with an attempt at killing.
How long was that patient in hospital?
He was discharged after 3 weeks.
Thank you, Doctor.
Doctor, you suggested that the intention of those who attacked Mr. Brain was to kill.
That is so.
And you estimate the weapon used to have been some form of cosh?
Quite.
Would you not think that if the attackers had really meant to kill, they would have used some other and more lethal weapon?
No, sir. A cosh is a very effective murder weapon when it is used scientifically.
That, of course, is a matter of opinion.
Yes, sir. But having twice tried ineffectively to save the lives of other men battered by koshes, I think my opinion rests on fairly substantial grounds.
That's all, thank you.
Miss Weston, what were you doing on the afternoon of the 17th?
I was walking Billy, my dog, along the river bank. I can't say we were making much progress because Billy was so interested in the rat hole.
While you were there, did you notice anything strange?
At one point in my walk, I looked towards Dynes Wood.
That is, I believe, popularly known as Lover's Wood.
The name on the Ordnance Survey map is Dynes Wood. I saw there 2 cars. 3 men walked from the black one towards the second car. I suppose they were halfway across when one of them turned back and threw a bundle of something into the back. Then he joined the others, and they all got into the second car and drove off in the direction of Woodhorn.
Can you tell us what make of car this second one was?
It was a Red Radler, the first model to be brought out with the overhead valve engine.
That is, I believe, the Mark 8 model.
I don't know what number has been given.
Miss Weston, for someone who had no reason to take particular notice of what was happening, you seem to have observed a great deal.
On the contrary, had I known I was watching something of importance, I'd have paid a great deal more attention.
Very well. I want now to deal with your description of the red car you saw. You say it was the first of the Bradleys to be equipped with the overhead valve engine.
That is so.
You claim not only to be able to tell the make of a car at a distance, but also what model it was?
In this particular case, yes.
Oh, forgive my saying this, but it's rather an extraordinary claim for you to make.
I've been interested in cars from the day my father bought me one.
Would you claim to recognize on sight all cars on the roads today?
Oh, no, certainly not. Of course, that would be impossible.
But I gathered from what you said previously that you were claiming to be able to do the impossible.
The witness suggested nothing of the sort.
As your lordship pleases.
I will not have witnesses misquoted, either expressly or by implication.
Miss Weston, you have just admitted you cannot tell the model of every make of car.
I have.
Then how is it you were able to do so with this car?
I know the differences between certain of the radiator grills.
Very fortunate, isn't it? Could you have done the same with any other make of English car? Could you have said which model had which engine?
Almost certainly not.
What a fortunate coincidence that when it was important to be able to identify a car as closely as you claim to have been able to do, the car in question should be the one make you could identify.
Mr. Adams, the witness has testified on oath that she can tell the difference between certain of the models of this particular car. Unless you can prove to the contrary, you are not entitled to try to infer that she is not telling the truth.
My lord, I'm surely entitled to try to show that what the witness claims is most unlikely.
I have already explained to you, Mr. Adams, what you are and what you are not allowed to do.
My lord, I must insist that...
Counsel do not insist in my court, Mr. Evans.
How far from the cars were you, Miss Weston?
I would estimate about 300 yards.
Is it not possible that at this distance one car grill looks very like another?
In this particular instance, I think not.
But it could happen.
I should imagine that much would depend on one's eyesight.
Is yours at all at fault?
I have never found it to be.
You will not allow that there is a possibility you have made a mistake.
I think not.
Thank you, Miss Weston.
That was quite enough for one day. Charming, these changing rooms, aren't they? They couldn't make them bleaker if they tried. You still reckon to get them off, David?
I suppose I shouldn't say so to prosecuting counsel, but I don't think I've got a hope, John.
The thing that shakes me is that you ever thought you would. Funny business about Brain disappearing, wasn't it?
Yes.
I had a word with the police just now. They're not surprised he decided to do a vanishing trick.
Oh? Why?
Apparently they've been thinking for some time that Brain might have been in on the robbery.
Have they indeed?
Yes, they reckon he told Clover all the details of the money he would be drawing and also the best place to attack him.
Then why was he so badly knocked about?
Well, Clover probably decided he wanted all the money for himself and the others. Wasn't going to run the risk of having Brain talk under pressure. Well, see you Monday.
Well, what happened?
The case is only half over.
Not finished? Have we got to wait till tomorrow?
Monday. The court doesn't sit during the weekend.
Monday? But Jane...
They'll wait till the end of the trial. They only threaten to act if the trial were postponed, not if it's stretched out over a weekend. Let's have a drink.
David, are you going to get them off?
I don't know.
You've got to.
I know.
Did you try?
Of course.
Well, then why haven't you?
I just told you the trial hasn't finished.
Is the prosecution case a strong one?
Fairly.
But not impossible?
No.
Will they keep their promise and let Jane go when you get them off?
Of course.
Oh, I've just sat here all day thinking about Jane.
It's best to concentrate on something else.
Fathers don't usually care about their children. You don't, do you?
I mind every bit as much as you do.
Is the prosecution case strong?
Stop asking me the same questions over and over again.
I'm sorry, darling. You are going to win, aren't you?
Yes. Marmalade, darling?
No, thank you. There's a long report of the trial in the morning paper.
Naturally.
You lied to me.
What do you mean?
You didn't do any good at all. I've been reading your cross-examinations.
I was never much good at that.
Good? That's a fine word to use. Your daughter's life depends on you, and you're still a failure.
I've tried, Gwen.
It doesn't read like it.
You can't go by newspaper reports.
The only thing you've ever been any good at is making excuses. Did you fight at all?
I did my best.
Did you? Read the bit where it says how the judge told you to shut up and you took it like a lamb.
What else could I do?
Is he more important than your daughter? Is he? Oh, what have I married?
I'm going out.
David. No, David, don't. I didn't mean it. I don't know what I'm saying. Oh, David, come back. Don't leave me alone.
Good morning.
Mrs. Brain,
Yes,
I'm looking for your husband.
I don't know where he is.
I thought you might be able to help me find him.
I haven't seen him.
Haven't you any idea where he's gone?
He went out the night before last and never come back.
Well, hasn't he been in touch with you at all?
Not a word.
Haven't the police found out anything?
You're not the police?
No.
Who are you?
Counsel for the defense.
Oh, you'd best come in. You're against the police?
I suppose you could put it that way.
You swear you aren't lying to me?
Don't you recognize me? You must have seen me when you came into court.
I didn't see no one. You swear you're working for the prisoners?
I swear I am.
Oh, I'm near off my head with worry. I don't know what to do, where to go. Bill's been a different man just recently. Never seen one. No one so nervous. Shout and swear to me that's something he's never done before.
This is since he got hurt.
Yes, but he was so terrible afraid as well.
And he wouldn't say what was wrong.
No, I tried to get him to tell me, but he wouldn't. And then this Thursday night, he couldn't stand it no more. Terrible danger he was in, he said, and he got to hide. Whatever happened, he wasn't turning up in that court. He was going to stay with Dora. That's my daughter. And on my life, I wasn't to let on to anyone.
Where does your daughter live?
Han Road.
At what town?
Well, this one. It's the next road along.
But hadn't the police checked her?
Oh, I told them my daughter lived in London. She did till the end of last year.
What's her name?
Ash. Mrs. Ash, go and see him. Find out what the trouble is, and if there isn't anything I can do, he may listen to you.
I'll do what I can.
Oh, he's been bad again the last few days. I tried to get him to see the doctor. Oh, I wish he'd never...
Well, thank you for telling me what's happened.
Oh, I've been wanting to speak to someone, but everyone was against me. These neighbors do you down if they can.
What's the number of your daughter's house?
70. You can't miss it. Not with its blue windows and doors. Yes?
Your mother, Mrs. Brain, suggested I came here
Why?
to see if I could have a word with your father.
With Dad? Who told you he was here?
She did. I may be able to help him.
He'd help most by getting him out of his house. Does Mum think I haven't enough to do? Who asked him? That's what I want to know.
I'm afraid he must still be ill after that beating up from the bank robbery.
Why ain't he in his own house, then?
You're probably helping him a lot by having him here. Do you think I could see him?
You do just that. Tell him from me I'll be glad if he'll say when he reckons to move.
Which room is he in?
First landing on the right.
Thank you.
If he tries to tell you he's hungry, tell him he's got to wait, same as the rest of us.
Why haven't you... Who are you?
Don't be afraid. I'm not the police. I've just seen your wife. She suggested I should come here and talk to you.
You are the police.
No, I'm not. I'm counsel for the defense in the bank case. I'm trying to get Clover and the others off. I've come to you because I want to hear the true story.
I don't know nothing.
I suppose you realize that by now the police think you were in on the robbery.
It ain't true.
Not that they can prove anything as yet. I tell you this, though. If Clover and Co. get sent down, and they're pretty near, they'll take everyone else they can with them, so if you can tell me anything to help get them off, I should. Believe me, it'll pay you.
I've got a headache that don't leave me any peace. It was all Clover's fault. He talked me into it. I didn't have anything to do with it. Honest, I didn't. £1,000, he said, just to give a little help. And all I had to do was take a light tap on the head just to show I wasn't in on anything. Oh, thousands a lot of money.
How right you are.
Oh, things were...
Here. Have some water.
Oh, things worked out nice till we was inside the police car. Then Clover started hitting me with a cosh. I shouted at him not to hit so hard, but he laughed and went on hitting me like he was mad. And the swine meant to kill me.
He nearly succeeded.
Yeah. Well, the hospital did me proud, but the police worried me sick. I kept telling them I didn't know nothing, and then they dragged me along to the police court. And all the time I was giving evidence, Clover was looking at me. He'd have finished me off then if he could have done. And then And they got messages through about what they do to me if I mess things up in front of the judge. So I sculpered. If no one knows where I am, they can't get nothing from me.
I see.
Why should Clover talk if he and the others are found guilty? It ain't fair. I ain't done nothing to give them away. Tell them it ain't fair.
Tell me, there were 4 men in the robbery, weren't there?
Yes.
Who was the 4th?
I don't know.
You must.
I never seen the others, only Clover, until we was all in the car together. And then I didn't see much of them.
Don't you know his name? Wasn't he ever addressed by a Christian name or a nickname?
No. I don't know nothing of the Clover started. The headache's getting worse. It's as if someone was squeezing it in a vice.
Have you seen a doctor?
Not since I was sent back from hospital.
And you must call in one now.
I ain't seeing no one.
How long have you been getting these heads?
Oh, ever since my eyes went back on me.
How do you mean?
Keep seeing 2 of everything.
Mr. Brain, I'm going to tell your daughter that she ought to call someone in right away.
I tell you, I ain't seen no one. I don't want people here, and that's it. Don't you send anybody here.
Well, what do you say?
Mrs. Ash, your father's very ill.
So he keeps telling everyone.
You ought to call in a doctor right away. You can say Mr. Brain is your husband's father, or something like that, to stop his identity coming out.
What's Dad got to say about it?
Well, he doesn't want to see
And
anyone.
that's good enough for me.
Mrs. Ash, I think the way you're... Oh, very well. I'm sorry to have troubled you. Perhaps one day you'll be ill yourself.
Here you are, sir. Yes, Clover. I'll be just outside.
Thank you. Clover. Sit down.
You ain't doing any good.
Agreed.
Your daughter won't be no good to look at if we get sent down.
I'm not forgetting.
Well, why don't you do something?
Such as?
I don't know. I ain't been paid to do the thinking.
Not even you, Clover, can run round facts.
You've got to do something. Listen, I've been inside enough times to make my record dirty. And old judge won't pat me on the back and tell me not to do it again.
Mr. Justice Leeming will be pleased to award you the maximum sentence he thinks will go unchallenged in a higher court.
Well, why ram it down my throat? Get out and earn your money and do something.
What do you suggest?
Oh.
Now, look here. Have you a memory?
Of course I have.
If I give you something to memorize, will you do it?
Why should I?
I thought you wanted to go free.
Get me off and I'll learn the old Bible by heart.
Right. Have you a friend outside who'll stick to his story if he's paid enough?
I'll give you a list of people who'd swear their own mother to a rope for a couple of hundred.
Will Enton and Green back you up?
I'll do what I tell them.
Very well. We have one chance.
What?
On Monday, you'll confess to armed robbery.
Oh, I ain't doing nothing with a sword. You're mad. I ain't confessing, do you hear me? Your daughter will get hers, I'm telling you. She'll get hers.
Not if you confess. Now, keep quiet and listen carefully. One slip from either of us in court tomorrow and the balloon goes up. This is what you're going to say.
I swear by Almighty God, the evidence I give the court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Is your name George Michael Clover, and have you recently been living at 5A Chandos Street?
Yes, I have.
And are you employed by Mr. Pointer, who runs a market garden?
That's right.
Mr. Clover, I want to start my examination by taking you back in time to the period when you boarded with a Mr. and Mrs. Younger at 25 Brisbane Crescent. Do you know how long precisely you boarded at 25 Brisbane Crescent?
I ain't certain.
Was it a long time?
Shouldn't have said so.
Did you at any time while you were there obtain by any means whatsoever a handkerchief that was not yours?
No, I didn't.
How can you be so certain?
Oh, I never had handkerchiefs that weren't khaki. Buy 'em cheap from the surplus store.
So, if at any time you found yourself in possession of a white handkerchief, you would know that it was not yours.
That's right. Never had no white ones.
Suppose you found that you had a white one in your possession, what would you do with it?
Well, I'd try and find out who it belonged to and give it back.
Let's move on in time. I want now to deal with the days between and including the 16th and 18th of last month. Did you, on the 16th, hire a car from the firm Hire a Car, who have their offices in Jordan Street?
I did.
Will you tell the court, please, why you hired this car?
I wanted to go for a drive the next day.
Was there no other purpose?
No. Why should it be?
Let us now move on to the 17th. Did you go to work on that day?
No.
Why not?
Well, I hadn't had a day off in months, and the old pointer don't never tell you to have a bit of time off, so if you want to break out, to take it.
You wanted a free day because you had been working so hard?
My lord, the prisoner did not say that.
I apologize. Mr. Clover, why did you want this day off?
Like I said, I've been working so hard, I wanted a break, and I'd hired this car to go round for a drive.
At what time did you leave in the car on the 17th?
It must have been about 1 o'clock.
Were you alone?
Well, my pal Harry Enton was along with me. I took him a little way towards town and then dropped him. By the old bridge it was.
What happened after that?
I went for a drive.
Where?
In the country.
Did you go anywhere in particular?
Just wanted a drive. I didn't care where I went.
Have you any idea at what hour you returned?
Oh, sometime after 3. I drove back through town and I was crossing the pub when I sees Tom and Harry. I stops to talk to them and I gets in the car and we all go back to my place for a beer or two.
Were any of you carrying a suitcase on your return to your lodgings?
I was. I bought it because I wanted something like it and I saw this one going cheap.
What happened after that?
Oh, we had a beer or two, like I said. Don't ask me how many, because I don't remember.
You seem to have had a relatively quiet day.
They did.
Mr. Clover, when the police arrested you because they believed you were connected with the robbery, they searched you and found blood on your scalp. They asked you how it came there, and you said the blood was yours.
That's right.
You know, of course, that your own blood is Group A, and that the blood found was Group O. So that, in fact, it could not have come from you. If it was not yours, whose was it?
Honest, I don't know. That's straight. It's a real mystery to me. I thought I'd cut myself shaving.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Pry?
If someone bleeds in your presence and some of that blood adheres to you, would you not expect to know how, when, and why? Well, wouldn't you?
I told you, I don't know how it got there.
Can you produce an acquaintance of yours who will go into the witness box and testify that he or she had been injured in your presence and that some of his or her blood could have come in contact with you?
I'll keep telling you, I don't know how it got there.
Are you really asking the jury to believe that?
Well, it's true, isn't it?
I think perhaps we should move on. Tell the jury, please, as accurately as possible, how many times in an average year you hire a car for the purpose of a pleasure drive?
Not very often.
Would you claim it were as often as 12 times?
No.
3 times? 2 times? Or is it the truth that this is the first occasion on which you have ever hired a car?
Yes.
So, this is the first time. Would you tell me why you decided to hire a car?
I wanted to go out and see the country.
Would you care to try and explain how it was? You had this sudden and unique desire to go forth and enjoy the pleasures of nature.
Because I wanted to.
You felt you had to get into the open and enjoy the sunshine.
What's so funny about that?
I thought you worked in the open, in a market garden.
I told you what happened.
You will control yourself.
When did you go along to hire a car and book this car?
I don't remember.
Would you dispute that it was on the 1st of last month?
If you say so.
When you booked this car on the 1st, how were you able to be so certain, in our extremely changeable climate, that it would be fine and sunny on the 17th?
I didn't say I was.
I thought you just agreed that the main reason for your drive was to get out into the countryside and enjoy the sunshine. What would have happened if it had been raining on the 17th? You have said that you left the house at about 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
That's right.
And you returned not long after 3.
Yeah.
You weren't away very long. Did you not enjoy your drive through the countryside as much as you'd hoped?
Why were you away for so short a period?
Very well. You enjoyed a car journey that took about 2 hours. Will you tell the jury where you went?
In the country.
Now, that unfortunately covers a large area. What I want to hear from you is whether you went north or south, east or west, whether you drove throughout the 2 hours or whether you stopped anywhere. And if so, when and for how long?
I ain't going to answer.
Why not?
I ain't going to do myself in.
Did you in fact go anywhere near the country?
I told you I did.
Then answer the question. Whereabouts did you go?
I ain't saying.
You will answer the question.
I can't send myself down.
What are you talking about?
It would seem, my lord, that the accused is refusing to answer the question because he believes he will criminate himself.
This is quite ridiculous, Mr. Adams. You must be aware that a prisoner giving evidence in his own trial has absolutely no privilege against criminating himself as to the accusation.
I know that, my lord, but does the prisoner?
You will answer the question learned counsel has put to you.
I went to Stanton.
And what were you doing there between 1:30 and 2:45, allowing that the journey from here to there takes half an hour?
I was trying to rob a bloke called McMenton.
Do you say you were trying to rob a man called McMenton who lives in the town of Stanton on Thursday the 17th of last month at some time between 1 and 3:16?
Yeah.
Please give the court the full details.
I ain't talking. You'll send me down for it.
By a fortunate turn of events insofar as you are concerned, Clover, whatever evidence you now give us to this attempted robbery, such evidence may not again be used in any court because I forced you to give such evidence and you did not volunteer it. Put more simply, if this second robbery proves to be fact, there is no one who can charge you with it on the evidence you now give.
You can't do me for it?
The law cannot accuse you on the evidence of your admission.
That's a bit of all right.
You will kindly refrain from any comment. Mr. Pride, we must endeavor to discover the validity or otherwise of this story.
Of course, my lord.
I think it would be more to the point, if perhaps a little exceptional, if Mr. Adams continued as though conducting a further examination in chief. That will give you, Mr. Pride, the opportunity to cross-examine.
Clover, will you tell the court in your own words what actually happened on the afternoon in question?
Oh, it's like this, see? I knew of an easy touch in Stanton. An old kilter would always has plenty of money around, and he didn't pay into the bank until Saturdays. I got a car to go up and do the job.
So when you originally hired the car, you were then contemplating a robbery?
Well, not the one that landed me here. I got a car, see, and left home at 1 o'clock, just like the old girl said. Harry Anton was with me at first, but I dropped him off at the old bridge and carries on because I was doing the job on my own, see? Well, I drives up to Stanton, cases the grocer's shop. When there ain't no one else inside, I goes in and starts to have a word with the old kilter, the older Scotsman, McMenton.
Have you any idea what time this was?
Oh, I don't know. The clock outside had done some talking, but I don't remember what it was all about.
You entered the grocer's shop. What then?
Oh, the place was empty except for the old man. So, come on, I says, let's have a look at the money, and takes a nice number of cushions out of my pocket. He starts to yell blue murder, so I taps him one and makes his head bleed. And he fights like he was straight out of the corner. I get scared, grabs the suitcase, what was near the till, stuffs some money from the till into my pocket and scarpers before the flatties get around to ask me what I'd like to eat for my dinner.
And what then?
Well, I drives back quick, picks up Harry and Tom, like I told you. He all goes back to my room for drinks. When they'd gone, I had to look to see what I'd picked up.
And what had you succeeded in stealing?
£6 and a few old clothes. Not worth crossing the street for.
What did you do with the clothing?
Burned it. along with a suitcase.
Mr. Pride, I hope you will agree with me that the circumstances being what they are, we should endeavour to ascertain what proof, if any, exists of the accused's story before we continue.
I do so agree, my lord.
The best course, in my opinion, is to ask the police to ascertain whether any complaint was made to them in Stanton on the day in question, and to interview Mr. McMenton.
Quite so, my lord.
If this latter gentleman offers the slightest corroboration of Clover's story, then we must request that he be brought here so that we may question him.
Yes, my lord.
That being so, I fear we must adjourn.
Let me give evidence. Quiet. I tell you, I'm the man he's talking about.
Keep quiet there, will you?
Why won't you listen? My name is McMenton. It's me you have seen. It's my grocery store.
Constable, what is this disturbance at the back of the court?
My lord, this man says his name is McMenton, and that he's the owner of the grocery store.
Ask him to come forward to the witness box, please. Can you help us, Mr. McMenton?
In a way, my lord.
Very well. Take the oath, please. After that, Mr. Adams will examine you.
I swear by Almighty God that the evidence I shall give to this court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Mr. McMenton, did anything out of the ordinary happen to you last month?
It did indeed. I own a grocery business in Stanton. Didn't do too badly one way and another. I was in there one day...
Can you tell us, please, which day this was?
It was a Thursday, the 17th of last month.
Please continue.
Well, I was waiting around. It was a slack time of day, and in came a chap. I thought he was a customer. But he brought a cosh out and told me to hand over the money.
How did you react?
I yelled for help. He didn't take kindly to that and gave me a smack on the head. Things were all blurred after that, but when my head stops ringing, I find he's gone off with a suitcase of old clothes I'd got ready for the church mission fund and a few quid from the till.
Can you tell us at what time this incident took place?
Aye. I looked at my watch when it was all over, and it said 2:20.
And how long before that would you estimate the robbery to have been?
Oh, say 5 minutes.
About 2:15.
Aye, that's the strength of it.
Thank you, Mr. McMenton.
When did you report the matter to the police?
I didn't, my lord.
Why not?
Well, it's like this. 3 years ago, I was robbed of £8, 10 shillings and sixpence. The beaks take one day, push it up to quarter sessions, 3 days in all. And all the time I had to hire someone to look after the shop. That cost me £5, and he helped himself to groceries as well. Something like 10 quid down I was for reporting the loss of 8. Never again, I says. Next time you keep your mouth shut unless they pinch you something over 1,000.
How does it happen you are here in court today?
I read about the case in the papers, saw a photo of a bloke called Clover and wondered if it was the same boy.
Do you identify Clover as the man who attacked you?
I do, and I don't.
Kindly be more explicit.
I think it's him, but you know how a thing like this happens all over before you know it started, and you're not certain of anything. I reckon it was him all right, but I wouldn't like to swear to it.
How have you been able to leave your shop today?
Oh, the wife is looking after it.
Why couldn't she have done so after the first robbery?
She was away on holiday. Has to have her holiday, she does, or she gets all nervy.
When you read of the robbery which took place on the 17th and thought you might be able to identify Clover, why didn't you inform the police of what you knew?
It didn't seem to me to matter which job they nailed him on, all's one and the same, I said to myself. And if he's gone down for one job rather than the other, what's the difference?
Your conduct has been little short of scandalous. Will you cross-examine, please, Mr. Pride?
Do you know to what blood group you belong, Mr. McMenton?
Blood group? Oh, I can't tell you offhand, but it's down in my little book. If I get knocked over by a car or something, it seems to be much better if
Answer the question.
Yes, my lord. I've got it here somewhere. I always carry it. You never know, do you? Here it is, in the front with my license number and all that. Yes, my blood is Group O.
Well, if it ain't old Daddy-O.
Hello, Clover.
What did there, Go-Go? Say, you worked today. Got all of us off, scot-free. I knew you could do it. Now, let's have that packet of fags. We'll throw it in for one. Thanks, Go-Go. Me and the boys here's going to have a party. Coming along. Everything you want. Girls, champagne. People do me a good turn, and I does the same for them any time.
What about Jane?
Jane? Oh, who's Jane? I don't know no broad by that tap.
My daughter.
Oh, you got a little girl? Now, ain't that clever of you?
Clover, I got you off.
Sure you did that thing. They gave you ulcers doing it, didn't it? You'd rather see me go down the line for a lifer. I ain't forgetting what you said when I first asked you for help.
The rules.
They don't mean nothing to you. You ain't kept to the rules, have you?
No.
Oh, why start shouting about them?
When I saw you the first time, I...
You hated my guts. You was happy to tell me to take a walk across the sea with a chunk of iron around me middle. You've been paid to get me and the others off, so what are you yelling about?
You promised me Jane would come home safely if I managed to get you off.
Look at him, boys. Wouldn't take much to get him down on his hands and knees, praying to us. You're lucky I'm a kind bloke with a soft heart. If I wasn't, I'd see your little girl started a different kind of life to the one you was thinking she might. But I'm forgiving, ain't I? You'd agree with that, wouldn't you?
Yes.
Now, you go home, Go-Go, and soon you'll have her back. I say thank you like you was pleased and grateful to me.
Thank you very much.
I like to see someone who's humble enough to be proper grateful. So long, Go-Go.
Oh, excuse me, sir.
Yes?
The judge asked me to speak to you. He wonders if you'd be kind enough to go along and see him.
Now?
Yes, please, sir.
Come in.
I believe you wanted to see me, Judge.
Yes. Williams, ask them to be kind enough to have the car ready in 5 minutes.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Adams, for a great number of years, I have been very proud of the fact that I was first a member of the English bar, then of the English bench. I have believed both the bench and the bar to be without parallel elsewhere in the world because of the sense of honor and devotion with which members of them carry out their duties. Today it has been my misfortune to discover that, contrary to all I have hitherto believed, not every member of the bar is so jealous of the reputation he and his profession enjoy.
I don't quite understand you, Judge.
From time immemorial, Mr. Adams, counsel have been in a position of trust, in which, did they so wish, they could pervert the course of justice. A sense of honesty and faith has always in the past made it quite unnecessary to guard against any abuse of this position. Today you have shown me that we can no longer rely purely on a sense of honor.
Are you suggesting...
The 3 men who have just been tried were guilty of the offense with which they were charged and would normally by now have received heavy sentences of imprisonment. That they were not is because they were able to buy your advice.
That's not true.
The course of the conduct of your case was changed between Friday and today. The way in which the false evidence was given today clearly made certain that the prisoners would go free, yet would be unable to be charged with any other offense. Your advice was first class, Mr. Adams, but I shall make it my duty to see that no matter how much you were paid for it, you will think it dearly bought. You may go, Mr. Adams.
Well?
I got them off.
Oh.
Steady. They've promised to send Jane back safely.
When?
As soon as possible.
Oh, David. How did you do it?
By talking.
It was a miracle.
I'd hardly call it that.
I said you were a failure, David. How wrong can one be?
The judge called for me afterwards
To congratulate you.
to tell me I was the first Judas at the bar.
Oh. Do you think they'll have fed Jane properly?
Have a drink?
Thank you. She has to watch her diet or she gets those spots.
All girls get spots at her age.
Shouldn't she be here now?
I don't know.
They are releasing her tonight, aren't they?
I hope so.
What do you mean? Why didn't you make certain?
Gwen, I've done everything I can, and I've just about had it. We've simply got to be patient. She'll come.
"9:30. She's not coming this evening.
We don't know where she's coming from. If they've kept her out of London, it'll take some time for her to get here.
You told me you thought they had her in London.
That's not what I said.
Yes, you did. Why are you denying it now? Do you know something you're hiding from me?
Nothing.
Have you been lying to me all this time?
No.
Do you swear you haven't?
Yes.
Oh, David, if
Yes.
Oh, David. It's not Jane. She always knocks 3 times.
Come and see.
Hello? I'm hungry.
Oh, Jane.
What's in the fridge? Or is it still broken down?
Jane. Did they treat you all right?
Oh, not bad. It was better than school, but there wasn't enough to eat. I tell you, I'm hungry.
A table for one, sir?
No, thanks. Where's the party?
What party, sir?
The private one, a man called Clover.
I doubt if the ladies and gentlemen will wish to be disturbed, sir.
They'll get over it. Dreesley's the name. Detective Inspector Dreesley. Now, come on, where are they? Oh, in there, eh? Good evening, Clover. Evening, Casco. Green. Enton. Oh, yes. Your post. Been inside twice. Well, now we know the 4th man on the bank job.
What are you doing here?
Looking around.
Well, go look somewhere else. Here, Gasco, you're the mouthpiece. Put the skates under him.
Something wrong, Inspector?
Why?
Wonder what you were doing here. This is a private party.
Celebrating something?
Yeah, too true. We're celebrating the way we made fools of you splits.
Inspector, you can't be here on an official visit now, can you?
I wouldn't be certain exactly how to describe it.
I'm not sure you've even got the right to be here.
I shouldn't worry about that aspect of things.
Who asked you to push your oar in?
No one actually asked me.
Then shove.
Not just yet.
Clear out.
No. As I've always said, when voices begin to rise, it's time to sit down and have a drink. Here, Inspector, come and have a glass of bubbly. It's good stuff. Best the place has to offer. Rosie, you don't mind moving, do you?
Oh, glad to get away.
There you are, Inspector.
Cheers. Wish I could afford such luxuries.
Yeah. If you was wised up, you could afford it. Take me. I'm smart. Just done a job worth 15,000. I got money to spend.
Of course.
Oh, you was real smart, didn't you? All of you when you nabbed us. You was dumb. Couldn't put us inside, could you?
Come, Inspector. Let's not disagree over old history. Drink up and have some more of the bubbles of life.
Thank you.
Now that we're all friendly again, tell us why you're here.
Well, my presence, as they would say in official circles, is not unconnected with the bank job.
Well, the one the boys were tried for.
The very one.
Looking for the money.
Not primarily.
Then what?
I'm still interested in the boys who did it.
Well, there isn't any use coming here, is it?
No.
These boys are in the clear. There isn't anybody can touch them.
Why not?
They've been tried, and a jury of honest men and women found them not guilty. I'm not a clever lawyer, but I do know a little about the law.
Obviously. From the way you got this lot off.
Inspector, you've got to leave the boys alone. Take them to court again and what happens? Say you're the prosecuting bloke and you want to charge these boys with a bank job, right?
Right.
Right. I'm defending counsel. I rise to my feet like this. Now, my lord, I say very respectfully and bow a little to show my feelings for the judge. My lord, I plead outre qui.
What's that mean?
Quitted already.
Pricey, shut up.
The boys, I say, have already been tried for this offence and found not guilty. And under our very fine system of law, no man may twice be put in peril for the same offence. The judge turns and addresses you. Mr. Inspector, he says, the plea is autrefois acquis. How do you say to that? Oh, dear, you say
I say that you allowed for everything but a desperate counsel, ready to gamble. I say that Adams spoke to Brain, and from what he saw, he was ready to gamble that Brain wouldn't live very long. Brain didn't. He died yesterday, and the post-mortem shows he suffered from an abscess of the brain due to an infected clot of blood, the result of the head injuries received during the bank robbery.
It doesn't matter. Autrefois acquis.
An acquittal on a charge of robbery with violence, Mr. Casco, is, if you continue to remember your law correctly, no answer to a subsequent indictment for murder, because the charge is based on a new fact. The death of the person who was injured. Come on, Clover.
That was Counsel for the Defense, dramatized by Felix Felton from the novel by Geoffrey Ashford. The cast was as follows: Clover, James Kenny; David Adams, William Edel; Mr. Justice Leeming, Carlton Hobbs; Gwen Adams, June Tobin; Mr. Casco, Norman Shelley; Miss Amelia Weston, Joan Hickson; Detective Inspector Dreasley, Hayden Jones; Mr. Pride, William Peacock; William Brain, Keith Williams; Mrs. Brain, Mary O'Farrell; Mr. McMenton, Douglas Storm; Mrs. Ash, Diana Olson; Jane Adams, Anna Bentinck. Other parts were played by members of the BBC Drama Repertory Company, and the play, which was recorded, was produced by Charles LeFaux.